Good morning, everyone. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Selectmen of the town of New Canaan for Tuesday, January 17, 2023 at 8:31 a.m. And we have a long agenda today with budget for our first budget meeting. So first we'll go through the regular items. I guess Kathleen is traveling somewhere. So Kathleen, good morning. Nick, good morning.
Good morning. I'm here.
First item on our agenda is the minutes of the January 3rd meeting. Any comments or corrections?
None for me.
Not here.
I move we approve the minutes of the January 3rd meeting. Second?
Second here.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, public comments. I don't see anybody from the public here. Is anybody on from Zoom land? Nobody.
If there's anybody on Zoom who would like to speak, they should raise their yellow virtual hand. Seeing none, I think we are all set.
Are we changing our practice though, taking Zoom comments as opposed to people sending in emails? What are we? Yeah. Okay. Members of the public are welcome to provide comments to the Board of Selectmen on agenda topics scheduled for review and or vote. Anyone who wants to submit comments by email can send them to bosdistribution@nucanacT.gov and we'll read them before the end of the meeting. I don't see any public comments. So moving on to Grove Street. Tiger, am I presenting this? I'm presenting this. As we discussed in executive session, 28 Grove Street became available from an estate. It's a strategic property. And the idea here is to acquire this property and maintain it as a rental property with the idea that conceivably in the future, it's going to be a key part of any redevelopment of the Columbia Yard parking lot. There's no immediate plans for that, but there have been discussions with folks over many years about at some point we are going to want to do that. We've been keeping our eye on this house for many years, and it's the only property that would give another access point to that property. And we believe we can acquire it and do some level of improvements to allow it to be used as a rental property and cover the cost of the carry. So any questions, Kathleen and Nick, about, we talked about this in executive session. Is this strategic property? Kathleen?
Yes, Kevin, could you just remind us, is it currently rented, or how long will it take to do those capital improvements to get somebody in there to rent it on a short-term basis?
The estate is currently renting it, and conceivably that renter, the house had been lived in by the same family for 70 years. Right. And there's some level of repairs. We got a credit toward roof replacement on the negotiation, but it's in basically livable condition. But we could probably get double the rent if we did some improvements that haven't been done for many years. And while we're authorizing $100,000, we are not likely to spend much of that to make it continue to be rentable. But again, those decisions are going to be discussed by the Board of Finance in their approval process, and we're working on ideas. There's also a possibility. There's businesses surrounding that are interested in using the property for parking. We will look at the highest and best use for the property as a rental property. So I suggest we pass this just to move it on to the Board of Finance, who will be more deep diving in terms of the plan for this, as they had already been, and then the town council. But I'm willing to entertain any other questions. Other questions?
Not here.
Kathleen, I move that we approve this purchase and sale agreement, which I executed since it's entirely contingent on approval by the other bodies, including the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the recommendation for an appropriation and bond authorization of I guess, a total. We don't have the bond author, they're on our tablets. I read them over the week. So that the total, I guess, is $1,054,775. And again, the $100,000 is for possible capital improvements. There's no express plan already for capital improvements. Do I have a second?
Second here.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Tiger, now you're front and center. Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning.
So the first item that we have is a request from Getabout to purchase a new vehicle, Ford T350 transit wagon. The funds will be coming for $58,162.10. The funds will be coming from Getabout. They purchased the vehicle and turn it over to the town as a town asset. And then if there will be a sale or a replacement of this, those funds get credited back to the Getabout for future purchases or what have you. Mo's has been working directly with Getabout. They seem very satisfied with our arrangement, and we'd like to go forward with this purchase.
So this is one of our great public-private partnerships with Getabout, where they basically are fundraising to maintain their operations, and we handle both the vehicles and the part-time employees to provide the ridership for seniors and disabled folks who need that type of service. Do I have any questions?
Hey, Tiger, remind me, we cover their insurance, their auto insurance.
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons for this. We with a substantial savings for that.
Really substantial.
Correct. Yeah. I forgot exactly what
As I
the numbers
recall,
were.
they were paying $60,000, and when we put them on Kerma, they went down to $2,500.
It's
Good.
one of the reasons why for the arrangement.
Further questions? Tiger?
None here.
I move we approve this request from Public Works to enter into a contract with Gangris Ford for the purchase of a vehicle for the Getabout as described by Tiger for $58,162.10, paid for by Getabout. Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Temporary
you.
generator for the
Right, so this is actually the switch gear, the equipment that'll go on the building, and what we will have is our generator come over to it. So this is for when we finally get into the police department and move the existing department over to 39 Locust. It's mandated that they have a backup generator. So it's a law for their accreditation through the FBI. So this is for the purchase of the equipment that'll remain on the building. We went to several vendors. Northeast Generator came back at $49,994. We added a contingency of $7,499. Due to the excessive lead time on these, we'd like to purchase it now because we're talking it's at least 20 some odd weeks before the equipment will get here. We'll put it onto the building, and then if need be, our trailer generator will come over to the police department in the event of a power outage there. But we'd like to move forward. These funds are covered.
so it's not going to sit there. It's only going to be used in the event of emergency.
In the event of emergency,
Right.
If we need it, it'll be first priority. Obviously, we would have to determine between the wastewater plant and them, but we'd have to at that point, if God forbid we came into that point.
Okay.
It doesn't come down to that.
I want to hear that. I would think.
Yeah, they'd have to both, the wastewater plant would have to go down, and then we'd have to be without power, and there are other ways around it.
Well, we have our traveling, which we bought for ARPA funds, and we can
Correct.
plug that into the transfer station and other areas. I forget whether we're going to pull this equipment out of that building when we stop using it for the police, but
We are going to talk to the landlord about possibly a credit with the landlord on rent for keeping the equipment there. We could theoretically take it off. We don't necessarily have a use for it at that point, so
Right.
try to sell it on the
Mhm.
on the market after. We might get some monies back, but I think we'd be better served to leave it and get a credit from the landlord. But that'll be a discussion for future day.
yeah, the building probably should have as an office building, would benefit from having a emergency generator, but doesn't currently have that. So any questions for Tiger on this item?
Like you said, 20 weeks. Is that right?
About 20 weeks, if not a little bit more. Yeah. Yeah. That's the unfortunate thing is right now, just lead time on all materials. That's why we want to get this out now. And then we'll come back later for the labor for
Yep.
the install.
Got it. Thanks.
Any questions, Kathleen?
I'm here. Thank you.
I move we approve the request from Public Works to enter into a contract with Nose's generator as described by Tiger for a total cost of $57,493, which includes a contingency for the purchase of transverse twist equipment and docking station for the 39 Locust Avenue office building to be occupied by the police department on a temporary, I think it's 2-year basis. Do I have a second?
Second here.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item, actually 7, 6, 8, and 9 are all virtually the same. They're in essence, the highway department came at the beginning of the year for blanket purchase orders for various contractors. This is for Bellardinelli tires. The original approval amount was $5,000. We've exceeded that amount. And part of our purchasing policy asks us to come back. We're asking for an additional amount of $10,000 to purchase department tires for highway and for all of our other fleet vehicles. We're just seeing prices are rising. So while we tried to stay within what we were purchasing last year, as far as a number for our blanket purchase orders, numbers are rising throughout, and we're needing to come back for this as well as items 8 and 9.
And these are all in the budget, Tiger.
They're all in the budget. Yeah, I can talk through each one if you'd like. I don't know how you want to. You want to just go through 6 and then we'll go 7, 8, 9, Kevin, or how you want to do it?
Well, I just on tires. How much do those big truck tires cost?
Big truck tires are a different story. We buy those separate. Like the loader tires, we buy those separate. Those are thousands of dollars. This is all for our regular fleet and for some, say for our dumps, but they're, regular.
So these are ordinary tires for ordinary little vehicles.
Yeah. Pickup trucks, low boys.
How do we
I
pay,
think.
how do we pay for those big?
With that, well, the loader, we come back for a specific, like the dump, like the foam filled tires for a transfer station. We come back for a specific authorization. It's like $13,000 for those.
What's the mileage when we replace?
Around 35,000, depending. It depends upon usage, right?
Right.
It depends upon where they are and what they're doing. But a normal fleet vehicle is around 35.
So these are police cars and everything.
Police cars and everything. Yeah.
Okay. Well, number 6, tires are pretty uncontroversial. So I move we approve the request from Public Works to approve a increase in the purchase order to additional $10,000 with Bellardinelli tires.
I had a hard time too. Yeah. So,
Second.
Kevin, can I just ask a question? Sorry. And Tiger, you can answer this when you talk about all the other purchase orders. So in some cases, we're doubling what we had originally put in. Is that because we're increasing what we're purchasing, or is the price increasing on what we had originally planned to buy?
no, it's the prices that are increased. It's not necessarily some are a little bit more volume, but the majority of it is prices are increasing. And we kind of added a little bit to each one so that we wouldn't have to come back a third time. So we probably should have come back originally for Bellardinelli for say 10,000 instead of 5,000, right? The original purchase, instead of having to interim measure it. And then this one here is to say, okay, we don't want to have to come back a third time. So we're asking for a little bit further, knowing that, we have monies budgeted for it. We're only going to buy what we need, but it's another stopping and another step coming back for, say, a third authorization if we were to do it in 555 kind of deal.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any more further questions? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Fine.
Aye. Okay. Dump truck.
Well, thank you for that. This next is this was part of the purchase that we had previously, where we had to take money from our 22 account and bring it to the 23 account to buy a purchase. This is our second truck. It'd be a 2024 Ford 650 for $192,158.30. The interesting thing about this is it's a 2024. So we actually have to put in the order now, and it'll be a year plus before we'll get this vehicle to come back to us. But we were able to make a nice deal whereby we were able to get 2 large trucks. We had $220,000 in 2 annual budgets for a total of $440. Our first truck came in at around $233. We were able to make a better deal on this one, a slightly smaller truck, to be able to then stay within our budget allotment. Was, so the 192 plus the 230 brings us just below what we had available monies for both accounts for both years. So I think Mosen has did a really nice job on this, but again, we have to set this purchase in motion, and it'll be approximately a year before it comes back. The vehicle that we'll obviously keep the vehicle for this until we get that replacement truck, and then we'll put that on Gov Deals for a sale. The last time we did it, they were giving us $4,000 or offering $4,000 for a trade. We put it on Gov Deals and got $9,800 for it. So we knew that $4,000 was low. We were hoping for $10,000. We got $9,800. So we'll do the exact same thing for this replacement truck, 28 truck, when this one comes in, we'll put that one out, but we can't necessarily trade it now. We have to wait.
Do we benefit from buying multiple vehicles from Gan Glass?
Most of the time, these are on a state bid, or the DAS contract or a Sourcewell contract. So we're benefiting from that. Good. But it's very difficult because it's a spec truck, right? So it's not off the rack.
It's not a T 350.
No. This is a big sucker, the 650.
Any further questions? Hearing none, I move the request of Public Works to purchase a 2024 Ford F-650 dump truck, for $192,158.30 as described by Tiger. Second
Here.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. This next is a blanket purchase order for Webb Construction. Kathleen, to your point, was this is a little bit of additional work. We've been able to do some additional drainage installation, some additional pavement work. And what this is in essence, they take our old asphalt and some of our spoils from our contracts. They process it and then sell us the material back, and we save on the shipping. We bring it over. They'll take it over and then bring it back. We have no shipping costs for them we pay for some of the disposal, a small amount for disposal costs, and then we pay a reduced rate for materials coming back. So this is just the highway department being able to do a little bit more work and some increase in cost. So we had our prior approval was for $5,000. We're asking for an additional $8,000 to handle the reprocessing of some of our materials that we generate.
Did anybody understand what Tiger said? I didn't know.
Yes.
We take the asphalt layer off when we're digging a drainage line, right? So we take the asphalt layer off, and any materials that we're not necessarily putting back in, those go into a spoils pile. We bring that to a crusher. That's Webb Construction.
So they're reprocessing.
Processes
so we
it back and sends it back to us. We don't pay for shipping either way because he grabs the material. We pay for a little bit on the processing, and then we bring it back. We pay for the material.
We're mandated by the state to do X, Y, Z with those materials.
Certain materials,
Right.
yes. Yeah, certain materials have to be recycled.
Right.
And then if we, God forbid, we ran into anything that was of a contaminated nature, we would process that separately. Yeah.
Okay.
This is New Canaan. It's not Fairfield.
Oh,
Sorry.
ooh.
Sorry.
Not sure what that means. But we've been doing this for some time now, Tiger, right?
Correct.
Tiger doesn't want to go to prison.
No shackles today.
Okay. Any questions? I don't remember this item in the past. That's why I'm so curious.
What? Webb?
I don't remember.
It was part of a large blanket, so you probably had 25 items in there
Right.
that you didn't even notice. It was under drainage materials for Webb Construction. So
Right. I have no further questions. Any further questions about reprocessing?
None here.
Web? Okay, I move we approve this request as described by Tiger for $8,000 blanket purchase order for Webb Construction to reprocess drainage installation materials throughout town. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Now we have various contractors.
that's right. Then this is it.
Why is Webb not in with the other various contractors?
Well, because they came in independently. Lardinelli came in first, then Webb, then the others came in. So
Okay.
in speaking to the highway department, we were getting close on every single one. So we came forward with additional ones for Ben Romeo, Granger. They're all supplies in essence. Ready Care is first aid equipment, and Barzetti Welding is actually training for our welder. We're training a welder right now. He's doing an excellent job. He's almost certified in every aspect of welding that we need. We need a couple of extra training dollars for him. And then we'll have been able to train a welder on site from our existing staff, which I think was an excellent move.
Now I'm really confused. All these are under $10,000.
Correct.
So why are we bringing them to this?
Because they came as original blanket to the Board of Selectmen. So we're bringing the blanket back to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. Any questions on the other blanket purchase orders with Ben Romeo, Granger, et cetera?
On here.
I just say beyond the fact that they're less than 10,000, but they're actually additive to what was,
Correct.
in and around those numbers anyway, so which brings them over 10 near in almost all cases. So
Correct. All except for Ready Care. Ready Care would only be
Right.
30 at that point.
Right.
Did I move it?
I don't think so. I was just, no.
I move that we approve the blanket purchase orders as described by Tiger there. And on our tablets. Do I have a second?
Second here.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you. So this next item is for repair and replacement. It's actually removing all the existing tiles, repurposing what we can, and then supplying new tiles for the 2 roofs that are inside the Waveney walled garden. This project has been sitting out there for quite some time, 10 years plus, I would have to say, as far as redoing this area. It's heavily used for weddings and for just general purposing. And there's a concern about the fact that the tiles are starting to fall and there's a safety issue. So given the fact that Alden Bailey did a fantastic job on the roof of Waveney and did a really nice job on the tea house, I don't know if you've seen the restoration of the tea house, we asked them for a price to do these 2 roofs as well, since they're all in keeping with the exact same tile and the same type of restoration. So they're looking to lift and relay the majority of the tiles, scrape and paint all the wood trim, and then we have an allowance in there just in case some of the wood deck and trim needs some replacement. So they came in with a total of $83,550 for those three items. I added a 10% contingency of $8,500 for a total of $92,050. We've talked to the Conservancy. They're willing to share in the cost up to 50-50 on this project. We've spoken to the Garden Club. We think that there's a fund that some of the funds from every wedding that happens in the walled garden goes into a separate fund, and they feel that that money could be utilized for this. We're still just in the process of finding out exactly how much money would.
Why
be
would
in
the
there.
Garden Club?
What?
What's the
The
nexus
Garden
to
Club
the garden?
maintains the walled garden.
Yeah.
And so we
And they actually asked us, they've been
Right.
for several years asking us to do the roof. So
Right. So we went to them to ask if they had any additional monies, and they felt that there was some monies that have been set aside for every wedding that happens specifically in the walled garden. It gets set aside. So we're right now.
But that's
researching that.
town money. That's not
It's
Garden
not
Club
money.
money.
It's not
Yeah,
their money.
correct.
Right.
Okay.
But overall, worst case scenario, it's a 50-50 share with the Conservancy, and the funds are currently available in for this project.
So we voted on this as a CapEx for this year's budget.
This was part of the Waveney monies that we had, the $300,000
Okay.
as part of that.
Okay, thanks.
further questions?
none.
I move we approve the request from Public Works to enter into a contract with Alden Bailey for a total of $92,050 for the really replacement of the roof of the walled garden. And there's actually a few different roofs. It's not just one roof. It's 2, kind of 2 roofs. So
Two
that
separate roofs. 2 separate, yeah.
with Alden Bailey, who's done great work at the Waveney property for both the main house and the tea house.
The tea house. Yeah. Some say it's the gazebo. Some say it's a tea house.
Yes. Do I have a second?
Second,
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That's
Aye.
unanimous.
Thank
Okay,
you.
220 Elm.
220 Elm. This is, we had a design that we went with, we collaborated with the Board of Ed. They hired an architect that they were comfortable with. And, we went out to bid for the, improvements, to 220 Elm Street for when they, actually come over and take the space. We went out to bid, and we're looking at present for a bond authorization not to exceed $1,359,000 for capital improvements. We've had two bids. Bids are close right now. We're in the review phase of it, but this would be the worst case scenario, 1,359 for the capital improvements. This needs to go to the Board of Finance and the Town Council for authorization, and then we'll come back to the Board of Selectmen for a contract approval.
So you just said worst case scenario. There's no
1,359.
contingency. This is it. This is the.
Yeah, this is the number. Yeah, the number that we would need to authorize.
And can you describe just briefly what's being done and the timing?
Timing is of the essence, unfortunately, because we're trying to get them in, by the July date, what have you. It's all commensurate with the police department as well. There's a little bit of float in the police department, yet we need to get the Board of Ed out in order to then do a little bit of work inside for the police department. Not a lot, but there is still some fit out. So we're looking at about say 4 months, 6 months of work inside this building to get it done. It's a renovation of the floor to meet their needs, not only for them, but for the schools that they run in it as well. The Board of Ed's been intimately involved in it and they're comfortable with the design. So we'd like to go forward.
What are they, moving walls or what's?
Some of it is moving walls. Yeah. An overall renovation of the space for their use. It was set up a little bit differently than what they need. Right. So we have to do that, put in additional bathrooms, things of that nature, specifically because of the fact that we're separating the first and the second
Right.
floors. So now each one has to almost sit and run independently, its own separate bathrooms, its own separate systems, things of that nature.
was this a part of the original planned budget in terms of what was needed in terms of capital improvements? I know we just took out the stairwell and we've replaced that. And then this $1,335,000, is that something that we're all in once that's done? And was that part of the original project budget,
Let me answer that.
or is it added?
We had budgeted 750, I think.
Yeah, 700, 750.
And, the Board of Education wanted to do a lot more demolition and reconfiguration than we anticipated. But it is forever. I mean, they really will get 20, 30 years out of this, this reconfigured space. The bathrooms will be dedicated entirely to the first floor to the Board of Ed, and they want to redo those. So there could be some more value engineering here with the architect. This is kind of like the outermost that we're going to do. But this is really the Board of Education wanting more than we anticipated. So
They doubled it. The 750 is now nearly $1,400,000.
No, the 750 is nearly 2. So 1.3 add.
Oh, because of the stairwell.
the stairwell, I think, only cost $30,000.
Right.
We had
Yeah,
budgeted
it's-
100 for the stairwell. It turned out to be $30,000. But and actually, we've used some of that money already. I mean, just for clarity, is the bid? What's the bid for the total work?
I don't have that in front of me. It's 2 bids and they're very, very close to, and then we've got to add on contingency and some additional work. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I apologize. I can come back and get you that number, but this was a breakdown of exactly where we were going to be post taking into account the bids and all the work that had been done prior, minus the monies that we had available. The remainder was the 1,359.
For example, they want glass doors in the entranceway, which are $100,000. I mean, there's
Or
some,
more, depending upon the contractor.
Right.
One contractor was $240,000 for
Right.
the glass.
right. So
So yes. Came down to specifics on the fit out.
Okay, maybe perhaps at a future meeting, if you can, I'm okay with this, but perhaps at a future meeting, just to give us a big picture of what the total expense has been in terms of the purchase price and then any capital improvements that we've added, just so we can get a perspective, the full perspective on it.
That's fine. That'll come when we're done with the analysis and we come back forward for actual contract with the selected contractor. I felt that was the time that we would kind of get into the nuts and bolts as to actually what you were spending your money on.
Yeah, I see.
Okay, thank you.
The Board of Finance will spend more time on this. We have no jurisdiction, or the Board of Education. And
Well, we have the purse strings, so sorry.
well, the Board of Finance does. They're going to decide whether they want to value engineer this back.
The Board of Selectmen has a say in on everything, including this.
I don't think so.
I disagree.
So I move we approve this request from
You're just recommending to the Board of Finance a bond authorization not to exceed $1,350,000.
we're recommending the appropriation and bond authorization for $1,359,000 for the capital improvements at 220 Elm as described by Tiger for office space and school program fit outs. Do I have a second?
Second here.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Slide on the breakdown.
Aye.
Slide on the breakdown.
Playhouse purchases.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I don't have that. Oh, thank you. Okay, if you could,
Yeah.
it'd be helpful.
Morning. On item 12, I'm just going to cover for Bill.
Bill's here.
Oh, he's sick.
I thought he walked in.
No.
He went home.
Sorry, John.
So what we're bringing this forward is, for the agreements, the Playhouse Lab LLC raised money. And we're going to do the purchasing for them for their products to make it a cohesive product process. So they've sent us in $1.6 million of their funds to date. And from those funds, they will be buying things out of it. They've already did some consulting. They've purchased, I think, get the other one, architect, a design person.
Right.
These are their expenses through their money, but we're managing it for us. So we have it in an escrow account. So they give us the approval. When they send the invoice, they give us approval to spend it. We just want the board to know that that money is there and we're spending out of it for their expenditures based on their investors' money. So it's just keeping it transparent that these expenditures are going out through us, but it's their money and their.
So you're looking for approval going forward for any,
Yeah, just for any, so that you know that we're spending out of their account that's we have it on our books as an escrow for them.
I'm not sure I like this process because technically we have to approve specific expenditures. This is kind of like a blanket authorization for expenditures.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, because it's their expenditures. But
and you see all these expenditures,
they send it to us.
Yep.
We send them all.
Yeah.
We send it to Tiger and Bill to make sure they're okay with it. And then we actually have to get Playhouse's approval to cut the checks or do any expenditures out of it because their funds for the agreement.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't hear that last statement, but when you said we have to get the Playhouse's approval, who is actually doing the approval?
So it's multi-layered approvals. So the Playhouse Lab LLC, the entity that was set up.
Right.
And it's mainly Andy Childs, which I believe is their CFO.
Yes.
He sends over the invoices typically with the approval that we can use their funds to spend it. We send it it goes to Tiger and Bill for approval on their end with making that process cohesive of what's happening and what's going on for us to be able to cut those checks.
I think the better process here would be we authorize the CFO to make these expenditures, because if we're putting them on the tablets, these are all fit up expenses that will remain and become property of the town with the building. So is that universally the case with all except for the seats, or even the seats stay in the event? These are tenant improvements that they're paying for, but they stay if in the
They
event.
inure to the benefit of the
But
landlord.
on the other hand, rather than approving the release of funds, I think we ought to authorize the CFO to make these to release these funds as you described the process. So I'd like to amend that authorization because
Well, I'll just add, I think one of the costs, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have it in front of me here, but one of the costs was just the design fee, correct? It's not something that stays with the building. So it's an actual design fee. I actually kind of think maybe this process is good in the way that it's very transparent. And I'm happy to hear that Tiger and Bill are taking a look at like the whole process. I mean, Tiger, give us an example where you would say no to a certain request that they've made to do something with the playhouse.
Well, we've had that before where there were certain things that they wanted to do during the design that it's just not possible, either structurally or as far as a legal requirement, you know, say as far as say building occupancy, you know, a layout of a room, you know, fixture count, things of that nature that in the design process we've had to shake out multiple times as to what they would like to see. What's the art of the possible? And
well, the point is too, the Carl Rothbart's firm is the architect
Correct.
of record for this project. And the design firm is from New Jersey, and they basically have ideas that they're suggesting, but at the end of the day, it's the town building. It has to comply with all code requirements. So,
right, the code
and the
for
architects
Jersey
are the
is
ones.
different than- the code for Jersey is different than Connecticut, so
Right.
that's one of our issues too. So
Right.
we had to, you know,
Right.
that's why we had a licensed architect in Connecticut to Kevin's point, to have Carl and Rose on hand.
Right. But you know, it's fine for them to design the bar that they want, but at the end of the day, it has to be compliant with Connecticut law in Connecticut. So that's why the architect of record for all this is what's the name of Carl's firm? Does
Architectural Preservation Studios.
so you know, this is the relationship we have to follow. They're providing the funds. They have great input into the design.
I think it's a good process.
But so anyway, I move that we authorize the CFO as we've just described to authorize the release of funds as they provide. They're already in the account for the expenditure of various features as this project moves forward.
Kevin, I don't think their CFO can release the funds. It's
No, I'm
we
talking
have
about
to
our-
approve
I'm
it.
talking about Ann. I'm talking about Ann.
Oh, our CFO. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Ann is the control point here for the disbursement of those funds. And they have to have the approval of Bill Osman, who's overseeing the project. So, and
So
consistent.
are you saying this shouldn't come before the Board of Selectmen?
Well, again, I think,
I'm
you know,
not sure.
these have to be done as they occur. You know, there's no need to delay the process here because we're not going to spend time as we didn't today on the two items that are actually on our tablets. But I don't propose that we're going to every week authorize additional expenditures because these are right. They're ongoing. They're going to be weekly.
They're choosing. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we can manage this process from the selectmen. It has to be done by the CFO. So that's the motion I make. Second.
Can you just repeat the motion? I'm sorry, Kevin.
I move that we authorize the town's CFO to disperse funds from the Playhouse project account, which is already funded, to as per the agreement and with the supervision of Tiger and Bill Osman.
Are you saying for
Really, Bill
this
Osman,
amount and hereafter?
Yeah.
You're saying for this amount and hereafter?
Yes. Well, again, we had no amount here. So, you know, there's no amount on this authorization right now. It's on our tablets for our information, but it's an example of the kinds of things that are going to be occurring for the total amount, 1.6 million.
1.6 in the account right now.
Right. So, you know, this process is going to unfold really weekly, monthly. And I just, you know, we can't oversee this project.
Okay. I'll second.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tiger.
Thank you very much.
I understand. Chris, good morning. You want to delete one of these items?
Yes, the last one. Table that.
Okay.
And let the CFO present that later on. Mine are very small. They're not 1.3. I'll take 1.1 though. First one is Presidio. That's our renewal for our email, which we have to do. And the other one is the endpoint security for all of our devices that are on the network. So they're both renewals. It's in the budget. We know it's coming, and we're actually trying to move everything to the July 1 or July month so that we keep everything in order, so that we don't have to keep coming back during the middle of the year. But it's an annual.
And we get from Presidio the Outlook for mail,
Right. It's all the license.
even though it's a, so we don't get it directly from Microsoft. We get it through a vendor.
Right.
Any questions for Chris?
None here.
I move we approve these two requests for the IT department with Presidio for $15,191.76 and CDWG for subscription renewal license for $6,587.50. Second
Here.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Have a nice cruise.
Thank you.
Good morning, Cheryl.
Good morning.
Russ couldn't be here because he had to go to a problem we have with our public safety radio. So
Correct. So I'm recommending to remove Russ off probation. He has worked very closely with the emergency services staff. He has run some great trainings for our staff and has been a tremendous asset, I think, to the town. So I would like to recommend that we remove him off probation.
we had a department managers meeting 2 weeks ago, and I just said, we now have the dream team. I mean, Russ Kimes having a full-time emergency manager director on staff is a huge benefit for the town, and to make us the safest and healthiest town we can be. So I'm thrilled with Russ's performance, and I'm very happy to take him off probation. So.
And having known Russ for years, is a good friend. He hasn't, it hasn't been a surprise whatsoever that he's really blossomed in this role. So
Questions or
And he's enjoying. No, I would just echo what you gentlemen have said, and he clearly is enjoying the role himself. So I just see him really blossoming. So we're lucky to have him.
and he works very well with all the other public safety folks. So this is a great relationship. We approve the request from Human Resources to remove Russ Kimes from probationary status. Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Tucker, we have a standard IRS mileage is going from 58.5 to 65.5. As in line with the IRS change. Any questions about this item? I move we adjust the mileage to 65.5 cents in accordance with IRS guidelines. Second,
here.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Yep. Brings us to appointments and reappointments. We have, why don't I go down each one of them? Conservation Commission, the appointment of Ann Silvio for a 2-year term ending December 1, 2024.
She's on the list currently. Is there any reason?
No, she's brand new. What do you mean the list?
It's a list Pam gave me.
Well, that anticipates this approval today.
I guess you're right. Yeah.
And in that connection, I would note that Marty McLaughlin dropped off from the Conservation Commission. Marty McLaughlin was a huge help with the Bristow Restoration Project and bringing in the Exchange Club. We've done great things over there, and Marty's made personal contributions financially as well as his service on the Conservation Commission. But anyway, Ann Silvio, Chris Shipper is thrilled with this appointment, and I therefore recommend we appoint Ann Silvio. I move, why don't we do each one of these? I move we approve this appointment. Conservation
You're
Commission,
moving, Ann.
moving Ann Silvio,
I'll second Ann.
second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I'll just say I had an opportunity to speak with Ann. She's going to be a great contributor to the Conservation Commission. She's just joined us in New Canaan just for a couple of years now, and she's already making great strides. So thrilled to have her on board.
All in favor? Do we vote? All in favor? Aye.
Yeah, we did.
Planning and Zoning Commission, Chris Herring has been on the commission a couple of years, having moved over parking, and he's moving up to fill the slot. I think that's John Goodwin's slot, or is that maybe?
Yeah.
For a term ending December 1, 2025. I move we make that
Yeah, before we do that, I just
appointment.
plaudits to John Goodwin. I mean, running P and Z by definition is one of the thankless tasks in the town of New Canaan, and to be chairman during really unprecedented building in town, throughout town. And he's done an outstanding job, and thanks to him for stepping up in so many ways.
We also have Alan Swerdlow on P&C as an alternate member. And Kathleen, you've reviewed that with the DTC. So
Yes.
I move the appointment of Chris Herring.
Great.
I move the appointment of Chris Herring as a regular member for a term ending December 1, 2025, and Alan Swerdlow to become an alternate member for a 2-year term ending December 1, 2023. Do I have a second for those two appointments?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I thought we scratched ZBA. Oh, I'm sorry. We have another one. You know, some of these boards and commissions are still in motion. We probably will finish them by mid-February. John Mahoney's been on the ZBA, and he requires reappointment, so I'm moved that we reappoint him for a 2-year term.
I second the motion.
So ZBA is 2-year terms, not 3-year terms, for ending December 1, 2024. Nick seconded. All in favor? Aye.
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 Ethics Board, we have 2 new candidates, one a Democrat, one a Republican, Josh Kay and Arvind Bajaj, for 3-year terms ending December 1, 2025. I moved their appointments. Do I have a second?
Second here.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Committee, which Tucker chairs, we did not make reappointments last. Yeah, so these are really 3-year terms. Right. So we're reappointing all those who currently serve, and we're appointing Meg Healy Walsh for a 3-year term ending December 1, 2024. They're all on the same schedule. And Meg is, I guess, with Grace Farms. So that, the TDAC still continues to do great work with economic development and under the leadership of Tucker. So I move those reappointments and the appointment of Meg Healy Walsh. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, contracts under $10,000.
Kevin, I just wanted to I only had one question. I want to thank you. You had sent us some background information on the contract, a consulting contract with Dr. Valberg from the, I think the company's name is Gradient.
No, actually, he's with the Harvard School of Public Health as a professor.
Yes,
He also works at
Yes.
Grady.
right. So we've hired, I think the contract is with Gradient, or is it with directly with Dr. Valberg?
Well, he can only provide consulting services through Gradient. He's
Okay.
we're not hiring him as a
Terrific.
professor.
Yeah, obviously a very prolific and strong background. I think it's quite appropriate. And I understand that the Siting Council actually had recommended him. Is that correct?
Yes. You know, the executive director of the Siting Council, the Siting Council has actually used him in the past to consult with them on electromagnetic, the power line. They have jurisdiction over power lines as well. So he's consulted with them directly in the past, and they recommend. Dr. Pierce had actually identified a scientist, a research scientist, medical research scientist at Yale, but when we found Dr. Valberg, he was far and away more on point in terms of his experience with RF consulting. He consulted with the town of Wellesley, Massachusetts, which installed a 30-node DOS system to enhance their cell service. I spoke to Wellesley 3 years ago when they were doing that, and so he has this niche expertise. He actually serves on the International Committee of RF and electromagnetic. So he's quite an expert, and
Right.
I don't think we could have done better.
So I agree. I think that could be quite good. I presume have you already taken the town council through this, or is that the next step?
Well, the town council.
They're going through the
It's
process, right? As they're going.
It's our responsibility to find to hire the necessary consultants. If there was a question here as to qualifications or anybody else, the choice might have been harder. But this is an excellent find with Harvard School of Public Health, and so.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Obviously, he has great credentials, and I think what the outcome might be of this consulting project is likely predictable. I've looked back at his research, and I totally understand what he does, and I understand the outcome. I guess what you'll probably hear from the town council as they're going through it, and I've seen their memos in terms of the type of data and research that they're looking for, is that I wonder if you have somebody who's at least providing the independent data rather than the predictive data that's coming from the vendors themselves, AT&T, Verizon, et cetera, that you might have a little bit more credibility with the independence of the data that's supplied regarding radio frequency. As I read the contract, they're looking at more predictions, but if there was actual data in terms of the radio frequency, that might just, give more credence to the works that's being proposed by Dr. Valberg.
Well,
but I'll let the town council, they're in the process there. And I'll let them.
On a separate track, we're hiring an independent, like we did with the Colorado firm.
Yeah.
We're going to hire and I've talked to Cityscape, to have them, we're going to do the testing that the town council talked about, an independent firm,
Okay.
as we did before.
Okay. Great.
That'll probably,
Terrific.
that'll probably take 2 or 3 months. But as far as the consulting.
And then Dr. Valberg, then he'll review that data.
Sure. Yeah.
Is that the process?
Yeah. So we have 2 tracks here in terms of the things that the town council and the P&Z actually had recommended. So.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that. So that's good. Thank you.
Anything else on contracts? legal fees. I move we approve the legal fees on the tablets.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That's the end of our regular agenda. I would just comment quickly that I spoke to Jen Elson this morning. There's nothing new to report on COVID. New Canaan continues to do much better than the state overall. But COVID looks to be under control in New Canaan anyway. So very few cases in the schools, which is good news. And I think that's all I have before we go into budget.
I don't have any comments for Selectmen's comments. Thank you.
Okay. How we're going to proceed? Josh, are you first up? So we're going to do general overview by Josh. And Ian, you want to join Josh? And then we're going to do recreation and public works and buildings today.
Okay. Thanks.
I would note too, we have fee memos, which we will do in conjunction with each department.
Sure.
And they're on our tablets, the fee memos for this meeting.
I can put them on the tablets or I can share them on my screen. That's fine. I have them ready.
Well, perhaps we're not going to be prepared today since they haven't been on the tablets to do today's. We will have additional opportunities to review the fee memos in subsequent.
That's what I thought we were doing at a later time, but we can get them on the tablets.
Well, no, I thought we decided to do it with each department as they presented it since they're here. I don't want to have to call people back.
So I can put them on the tablets in one.
But it's still that Nick and Kathleen haven't read them. So for today, I think we pass on the fee memos for public works and buildings and actually it's just public works and then recreation, and we'll come back if we have to. But for future meetings, we will deal with the fee memos as each department presents. So Josh, the floor is yours.
Sure. So what you have in front of you and on your tablets is the culmination of all the work that we've done so far on the FY24 budget. Starting in October, we sent out requests to departments for their operatings and capital budgets, as well as their department narrative and performance measures. These put together kind of a cohesive view of what they've accomplished over the past couple of years and what they're expecting in the next coming year and what they expect their kind of achievements to be for the next year. And after these requests were returned and compiled, a group consisting of the first selectman, Tucker, Cheryl, Ann, and myself sat down with each of the departments, each of the department heads, and kind of combed through these submitted budgets. This kind of not only allowed us to knock out some of the like low hanging fruits of in terms of budget reductions, but also I think serves to kind of gain a better understanding of what a lot of these kind of lines are in the budget and just as a whole understanding what it's like comprised of exactly.
Hey, Josh, just as a starting matter, did you all and Kevin, you guys, and maybe even Board of Finance give guidance
So
to
there
the
was
departments?
2.75 guidance percent for the departments to try to stick to. That was given slightly after the department meeting. So we're kind of trying to work our way towards that, right?
And who came up with that number?
The Board of Finance.
That's what I thought.
So you kind of, that was my next sentence, actually.
Sorry, I stole your thunder.
You really did. Right. So skipping ahead, just to keep in mind that these budget documents are kind of living documents and will change over time. The ones you have printed and on the tablets will, for the most part, remain the same, but I will provide an updated summaries as well on the tablets, kind of just to reflect the changes that we've made during these meetings. The page you have in front of you are just the page numbers relating to the expenses, revenues, capital, and staffing for each of the departments that we're meeting with right now. And if you have any questions. Pass it over to.
I had a question. Josh, just a general question as we have gone through this. In some cases, we've seen salary increases for certain positions and others we haven't. Have we taken a sort of a broad approach as to how we're going to go about that?
So the town hall union contract, I think, is currently being negotiated. Oops, Scott. So the changes for those employees are not reflected yet because those rates haven't been set yet, as well as the non-union employees who will not be stepping and will only be getting their COLA increases. Those don't reflect any change as well because that percentage hasn't been decided. But that is being budgeted for in the salary contingency line.
Okay.
Both of those items.
And so
Both of those items are being
okay.
salary contingency line.
Yeah, we have a separate project going
And-
on with HR that could change additional. So I want to emphasize this is very much a working document that's going to evolve over the next 2 weeks, let alone by the time it gets to the Board of Finance. The Board of Education numbers are actually not in here yet that they approved at their meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions for Josh? So our first presentation today is recreation. Morning, John.
Recreation.
Close to there. We should. Yeah, okay. So, as you know, I'm John Howe, the Director of Recreation, but we also have a lot of other people that behind me. 22 full-time staff and a huge amount of part-timers, almost 100 when you take into consideration lifeguards, counselors, instructors, people like that. So with the Parks and Rec Department, some of our key management staff, Todd Decline, the Superintendent of Parks, Ryan Restivo, the Assistant Superintendent, Zach Philippus, the new Assistant Recreation Director, Steve Dayton, the Program Supervisor and Aquatics Director, Aggie Aspinwald, head of LAPM, and her assistant Kathleen Collins. So we got it pretty good because we make your leisure time more enjoyable.
That's a new tagline.
It is for today. We can change it.
Or a mission. Oh, here's our mission. Okay.
Okay. We enhance the quality of life of New Canaan residents. We foster beneficial use of personal and family time, and we provide and promote a wide variety of quality recreation facilities and services at a reasonable cost. So we're anything from after school programs to a walk in the park and everything in between. So that's a picture of Connor Field, this fall, 4th of July. 4th of July concert, or not 4th of July fireworks, family 4th, programs.
Could I just ask, are we going to have these presentations on our tablets?
Yeah, so we will, going forward, we will.
Yeah,
Because
except
it's hard to read.
very hard, and I'll make it available for you, but I didn't finish until last night. So I made some last tweaks.
Either hard copy or on our tablets. So
Will do.
they're great presentations, but we got to be able to read them. So
So we do many different programs, anything from the Witch's Ball, which is a Halloween party in Waveney, to Breakfast with Santa, 3 seatings. And our latest one that Zach came up with is the father-daughter dance, which sold out in 18 hours. So our programs are very popular. Of course, we have the pool and Kiwanis aquatic facilities, Lapham Community Center, and of course, Waveney events, weddings, etc. So, and then all the sports groups, anything from tennis to playgrounds to soccer to what have you, we're there. The Parks Department also takes care of maintenance of the artificial fields, snow removal, even though there hasn't been much snow removal this year. And then special events such as the color drop. So with this, we have many partners.
Snow removal for the town and the Board of Education.
The Parks Department takes care of the shoveling in town. So all the platform, the 2 train station platforms, sidewalks in the residential district and town-owned sidewalks, shoveling town buildings, and also plowing the school parking lots and some of the parks. We share that with the highway department. So with this, we have many partners in there. Athletic Foundation, all the local sports groups, Beautification League, the elementary and middle schools, because we run programs in there, Exchange Club, Garden Club, High School Athletics, and Waveney Park Conservancy. And I'm sure there's a lot of others that I've forgotten. So in our budget, we basically have 8 divisions, civic activity, that's small budget, but that takes care of like porta potties, band concerts, that type of stuff. Administration, the Parks and Rec administration, that is our large budget. Waveney House, which is mainly for taking care of Waveney House itself and also events and weddings. Paddle tennis, so operation of both the paddle hut and the paddle courts themselves. Park buildings, which is mainly run by, is mainly the utilities to run the park buildings, but there is some other things in that budget. Lapham Community Center, Kiwanis Park, maintenance of the swimming facility, and then the pool, which is a separate fund, but it's still under our direction, and then park maintenance. So civic activities. This is
whose dog is that?
Whose dog is it? If you ask, I'll tell you.
Did we get consent for that picture?
Since it's my daughter's dog at one of the concerts, I think we do. So civic activities, and you probably won't be able to read this, but mainly there's one change under refuse, and that's for porta johns. We've had to price increase, but also we've had to add handicapped accessible porta johns, which is a larger cost.
I can't read that.
Are these rented, John, the porta potties, or do we own them?
We rent them from a company and they come and service them every week.
Got it. Okay.
Is that those numbers in the budget somewhere?
Yes.
Where's the civic? Where's the
civic activity should be just before.
Should be 60.
Right. Civic activities total is $29,000. Correct? Which is mainly
It's 29,000.
mainly the porta potties and program band concert. Is that for the concerts in the summer or for the?
It's not even close to enough for the program band concerts, but it's materials for them, say speakers, that type of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. That include Christmas caroling? Is that part of?
No, Christmas caroling is not part of the town.
Oh, that's
a
done by the volunteer,
separate
done by the
group.
volunteer group,
Mhm.
but done by recreation.
Well, we set up stuff.
Yeah. Okay, but
For
the materials.
make sure the band stands there,
Right,
that type
gotcha,
of stuff,
okay.
but the town does not pay for any of that.
Right, okay. If you could, as we go, refer to us, which page?
Josh will have to, I don't have the
Civic
page
activities was
numbers.
on here, okay, 16, okay.
Page 16, yeah.
Those are the 8.
At the bottom.
So then, if there's no other questions there, we go on to recreation administration. Okay.
Everybody there with the $1,408,000?
Yep.
This-
I'm here.
This is our largest one. We've tried to stay as flat as possible. We're at 2.9% increase. When I say our largest, not our largest increase, but our largest budget. This is where most of our programs are run from. And that thing. So we did make a couple adjustments. We transferred 5850, not a big transfer, but 3 accounts that are more park maintenance related into the Parks Department budget. So 2,000 for trail repairs, equipment repairs at 3,000 and mobile equipment repairs for $350. We also combined some items together. You know, we had separate items for program soccer, you know, program camp buses, men's softball, and we put them all into program administration. So even though the number doesn't look flat there, we did not increase that number.
Sorry, John. Program administration is where?
Programs and activities.
Programs and activities.
55980.
Right.
Okay, so that's the various camp programs and other things all in there?
Yes, we put them all together in one instead of running them separately. So
They're right
that,
above, Kevin.
you know, so it's
Program
anything
soccer
from
camp.
after
buses.
school programs to,
Yeah.
you know, paddleball clinics, et cetera.
And is that in?
They stuck it into programs and activities.
At which point do we talk about the self-sustaining fund and how much these are these going to move out of the budget into the self-sustaining fund or? Right. But how will this affect if they approve that? The current, this year's budget will change.
It will change, but only slightly.
I'm sorry, what are they approving?
So instead of a self-sustaining budgets or a fund, so by its.
What's the bid ask here?
The problem with not the problem, it's not a problem.
Speaking to the mic.
Good, sorry, it's a good problem. We have waiting lists for the programs, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, we have a lot of waiting lists because we have a budget constraint. So if we set the budget at 413, that's all we can spend, no matter how much revenue comes in. So it's typical for Park and Recs to set up a self-sustaining fund, a separate fund by itself, where all that goes into it are the costs for the fund. Most of the time they are self-sustaining, meaning they do turn over a small profit. It's either to go back into the program to buy equipment and things that they need, or it's to cover some of the administrative costs on the general fund. John's time, his staff, because they overrun it. This way, it gives them the ability to, if they want start another program, the mechanism of how they want to set that up with the Park and Recs, that would be on the Park and Recs. But they said, we want to open 3 more basketballs and it's going to cost us 30,000, but I'm going to bring in 35.
And this
Go
would,
ahead.
this would give you flexibility to
To open programs up at any time.
not shut citizens out from
Right.
programs that
basically
they
that's
want
what's
to take
happening because
advantage
They
of.
don't have the budget. We don't have the budget
Right.
in the general fund.
That sounds like a
We
good
need
idea.
like this.
You know, this is something Steve Banco always complained about, that he couldn't add programs because he didn't have the budget for the expense, so we're fixing that hopefully with the Board of Finance tonight. And what I'm not clear about is how will that change the budget look here?
So it actually, we were looking at that. We pulled that number to see in pulling out these programs, you're pulling out the expense and the related revenue for both that and Waveney weddings, because that should be a self-sustaining as well. I think it's like a $40,000 difference, Josh. Was it a $40,000 difference to the good on the operating fund in pulling them out? And it'll make sure that John can operate all the programs he needs. And then we'll see going down, and we can track them and do everything in that side. And then see if the fund, if it does make more money, then you can assign that back to the general fund for cover administration.
So the point is, this will become a fund, just like
Yes, a fund all by
just
itself.
like the Banco pool is a fund separate apart. The sewer fund is a set from the general fund.
Right.
So
and
all these
then you're-
some of these numbers will move out to that fund
Yes,
from the general fund budget. That's right.
yes. And the net effect would be a 40,000 to the good in the general.
So will we model this if the Board of Finance approves for the balance of the 23 budget? Well,
The 23, what we're looking at that is what John's going to need as kind of the startup it won't take anything from the 23 budget.
Yeah.
It'll just get the self-sustaining up and running now.
Yeah.
So his spring programs, we can get that budget in place so we don't have program problems, payment problems, things like that.
Right.
So that's what we're looking to get done.
so it's not really on our agenda, although perhaps it should have been as far as the self-sustaining fund, because I support it. You support it.
I definitely support it.
It's
For your
The
committee
Park and
or
Rec
for
Commission supports.
commission.
the Board of Finance actually under the charter can prescribe how to construct our budgets. So that's why really why it's going to them. But at the end of the day, we're not going to make it. We will or we will not make a change in our budget presentation for 2024 based upon what they decide to do. We will, because we're going to want to pull these numbers.
So we know it's approved. We didn't want to pull it out yet until we
Yeah.
know that they've approved the actual fund.
Right.
It's,
Right. Okay. So it's in motion.
If we did pull it out and they didn't approve it,
Right,
we would have
right.
no fund to run.
Right. That's why these documents are very much works,
working, yeah,
working,
because there's so many
working
things going up,
documents
and
because
it makes sense.
several
And-
things.
Yeah,
Mm,
and this was the time the Board of Finance asked to talk about it.
Okay. Would that also apply to pulling out a significant part of the part-time salaries up
Yes.
above,
Yes,
which total $289,000? So,
yes.
so there's really kind of like probably $700,000 that could conceivably move out of the admin budget over to, or-
Remember the number.
Anyway.
And I don't
Anyway.
have it with me.
anyway, all right, again, it's in motion. Right,
Right.
right. So
Yeah.
that's all in motion. We'll understand it more when Board of Finance authorizes it, and then we'll start to see new numbers next week,
Yes, you'll see
next
the
week.
numbers once we,
Okay,
We'll start this whole process over.
and that would also include Lapham Center with all your programs. Aggie,
We were going to leave Lapham Center
it-
out of it.
It's not a self-sustaining program.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different.
We support the seniors more than what we bring in.
Right. So it would
So
be,
I'd like to keep the town supporting our seniors.
Yeah, that makes sense.
that's why we have to all understand how this is moving forward. Okay. Good. Where were we?
Okay.
So, questions about the admin budget on page 17? I'm confused though, again, by these page numbers, because I look at 17 and I here it says 16. Oh, it starts on, the heading is on page 16. Gotcha. Okay. All coming together.
Well, then let's find a new page number. So Waveney House.
Hey, John, if we could just go back to admin, just on the part-time. And I know as Kevin said, a lot of this is probably going to get moved out, but there has been some fluctuation. If you look at FY 20, 21, 22, and then 23. And I see that, the submission is pretty much unchanged, but
COVID.
was it just COVID?
I think a lot of it was COVID. When we
That's
get
what I
back
thought.
to 21, 22, I really don't know for sure what was going on there. That includes a lot of different things. That also includes the teachers that run our after-school
Yeah.
programs. Because if a teacher runs it, we pay them as a part-time employee. If an outside company runs it, we pay it
Yeah.
out of the program administration fund.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I wonder if FY 19 might shed light on what the real, I think the spend is what it is
Yeah,
to have a complete,
and that's part of why the
program.
self-sustaining.
yeah,
fund
no, I
is
think a
nice.
lot of that's coming out.
We run more programs,
Yeah.
even if it's $1 on a program we make, at least we're in the positive, so we
Yeah,
can then have.
Because that doesn't include LAPM, that's a separate.
That's a separate
separate
budget
thing.
completely, yep.
John, could you talk to and just broadly in the other categories as we go through there? I see overtime pops up a bit, and I see a slight increase, a big increase in this particular one. But what are we seeing in terms? Are these salaried employees that are earning overtime? How does that work?
Most of the time, yes, it's the salaried employees, because they need to work over 40 hours anyways. But they're not, I shouldn't say salaried employees, they're full-time employees that are making the overtime. And most of our part-timers in general do not work overtime hours. They're working,
Right.
working part-time. They're not working 60 hours a week as a part-timer
Right.
season. There is times where somebody could be making some overtime that's part-time, but in general, it's our full-time employees. That makes sense.
So in Waveney House, the PT went from the actual, which was 7,629, I think, to
This
Yeah,
is the, this is
because
the,
you're-
this is the wedding
We can get
coordinator.
up to Waveney House
Yeah.
if you,
No, I'm done with admin, but it was just,
Okay.
It's a small number, but I'm confused by why we are jumping to $5,200. What's the rationale for why there's more overtime by full-time employees?
And
Not managers who don't get overtime, but
managers do not get overtime, but there is some other employees, some of Butch's overtime goes in there depending on what he's doing. If there's an emergency call.
are we just refining these numbers better now that you're?
I'm hoping I would like another year to refine them even more.
Right.
You'll, just as a simple statement, we have not looked for any more employees. My first reaction a year ago was we'd probably be looking for a couple new employees. I don't think we're at a point now where I want to recommend hiring more employees, full-time employees with the staff that we have. I think we're going to do a good job, but that doesn't mean I won't come back next year and say, we could use another couple employees now that we've been able to run even more programs, that type of thing.
are most of the part-timers self-sustaining? Would they be part of the self-sustaining?
So most of them will be self-sustaining, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So Waveney House. So this is the weddings and
That's the new, right? The new employee that the wedding planner.
this includes the wedding planner, you know, and adding a wedding planner to our thing, I think is a big help. Coordinating the weddings, having somebody dedicated that can be there and off hours to meet with brides and grooms to tour and everything. And this is also a lot of Butch, who handles everything Waveney House. So, you know, that's this main budget with Waveney. But you will see on this, unfortunately, there's an 85.61% increase.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay. A lot of this, the simple statement is, these are things that probably should have been added in slowly over time for many years. You know, there is 31,000 for part-time salaries that was added, 50,000 for deep cleaning. You know, anything from washing the windows to truly going through the place and dusting and polishing and things like that, at least a couple times a year. We are also in the place where we have older appliances in the kitchen. As we use the kitchen more, and I think we will with more weddings and events, we will need to repair more and replace more. So, and then there's also in there 12,000 for the costs associated with advertising, both the website and, you know, wedding wire and that type of stuff.
So the contract, the OS contract services is
Yes.
deep cleaning,
Deep cleaning. Dusting.
which was never done before.
It's never been done.
Surprise.
You know, when we had post prom this year and we were hanging the pictures back up, we had a wedding that evening. I'm not the cleanest person in the world, but it was tough putting pictures up that could really use good dusting.
Is that the whole house or just the portions of the house that would be used for the venue?
Portions of the house that would be used for the venue. It wouldn't be like a deep cleaning of the rec offices, that type of stuff.
Okay. And would you submit that that's an annual?
I think it
Must
will
have.
become an annual cost. The 50,000 is a little bit of a guess, you know, just you should say, you know, how much we need to do to, you know, wash the windows on the building.
So Waveney will be self-sustaining?
Waveney will be part of the self-sustaining fund.
So that expense could be in there.
Hopefully it will be covered by weddings.
Right.
You know, so.
Just on that, I know you're going to come back to us with fees at perhaps another spot, another time. But as I just look on page 24, it looks like the expected fees, custodial and rental, if I'm reading this correctly, is 125,000. So we're really only getting half of what we're spending on Waveney House. Am I reading that correctly?
At this time, I think you are. But as time goes on, as we can give even a cleaner venue, I think that will help with our profits. We'll be able to book the Fridays and the Sundays that are in general aren't a great time. We've also, we're proposing to raise mainly the non-resident fees for renting a Waveney. So
Why don't we hold that discussion until they have the time to read the memo and and perhaps have you back.
So we good with Waveney House?
I'm good.
Okay. So paddle tennis, just there's a cost associated with running the paddle courts. We kept everything flat except for one line item that basically comes back and forth every year. And that's to resurface some of the courts in August. We didn't do any last year, so that's why we're putting in the 18,000 to resurface them. It's part of normal maintenance per se. Your paddle court doesn't last forever, so it needs a new coating.
Questions about paddle? Michael Chen will have questions there for Board of Finance.
What is it how often do you anticipate in the future, the out years, that we'll have to do the patent courts?
If we add an extra court, there will be a little bit more often, but right now, every other year, if we have that, 17,000 to 18,000 present numbers to resurface some of the courts. A little bit depends on how much wear and tear there is, not as much of playing, but shoveling. Shoveling helps wear it down. And it needs to be that nice gritty surface, so it's a safe playing surface. So.
I'm a little confused though. Why is repairs for the courts going down to 1,000?
Repairs,
Your line item for repairs to the
it's
court.
gone up 1,000.
Oh, that's positive. Oh, it's going to 12.
Yes.
Oh, that does make
Yeah,
sense.
that's
That doesn't
anything
make sense
from
percentage wise. Oh,
tightening the screen.
you already increased that last year
Yes,
to 11,000.
Mhm.
Or did Steve do that before?
Steve did that before.
Okay,
Yep.
so we're actually on a trajectory to get to a new level. Okay.
So electricity, wow.
Where does that bring us?
Jeepers.
Onto park buildings.
Park buildings. There's kind of a story here with electricity. So let's-
Sure is, but
What's the story?
well, John can explain it.
yeah, what you'll see with all our utilities, and you'll see this with Tiger's budgets too, is we put in a flat 10% over the utilities. So heating oil, gasoline, diesel fuel, and electricity is a 10% increase. Is it a complete guess? I'll let Tiger talk on that more, but I don't think we really know exactly what our fuel prices are gonna do.
Well, on that point though, we have is your maintenance building in here on
Not in this
Farm Road?
park and not in these park buildings.
That's in the park.
That's in its parks.
Okay, so
operation.
these are the buildings in the park. But for example, our electricity contract goes through the end of December. So if we do see an increase, it's only going to be for half a year next year.
Right.
And but electricity is probably going to increase. On the other hand, since Waving House and the other park buildings are going to be converted to gas, we should see a decrease in the oil.
Right, we should be shifting numbers, so
We
to
should be
speak.
shifting numbers considerably, so. But my question here is, electricity, is that the lights as well as where are the lights in this budget?
Okay, so
Field lights,
field lights, yes, in this budget, both the water tower, the 2 fields, the 3 fields up there, 1, 2, and 3. And the girls' orchard and water tower fields are in this budget.
but
Okay,
not Dunning. Where is Dunning?
Dunning and Mead Park lights are in the Parks Department operating budget. Why? I don't exactly know.
That's just classic. That's classic.
Yeah.
Should we change that since we
Well,
realize?
The main reason Dunning stayed in the park, went into the Parks Department budget is we took over the maintenance, the true maintenance of Dunning, the Parks Department did. And for whatever reason, the Parks Department always had Melick and Gamble lights in their budget.
Right.
The other ones, like the power coming off from Lapham feeds the water tower. It used to feed the water tower lights, so that's why I think it's on there. And now it comes off from a different.
So the lights for Dunning are not in the Dunning zone. It's here.
Dunning now, the maintenance costs of Dunning now falls in the Parks Department operating budget.
That's probably something that we should address. That's something we talked about with the Board of Finance, because these numbers are going to change also because we're putting in the solar on the auxiliary roof at the high school, which will feed Dunning. That'll bring that down considerably. Because there's net metering on those solar panels. And also the CHP we're installing at Lapham, which hopefully will be done in the next 2 or 3 months. We'll bring that that'll supply electricity both to Lapham and also to the field lights.
Correct.
So there's a lot of movement here in terms of where we're gonna,
Yeah.
next year, these numbers will be significantly different.
These are basically presented on if nothing changes.
Right. And then it doesn't make sense to me why we have Dunning and Mead in another budget when it's really kind of Parks buildings.
To me, it doesn't matter. It's still a town expense.
Right. Just
You
so,
know,
just
the
so we
ones
keep
that
our eye
they're-
on
Yeah.
the various parts that are
Yep.
in different buckets. Fortunately, water is kind of a minor expense.
It's just one that's minor, right?
Kind of surprising, actually, though.
Well, since the water you're seeing there is drinking water per se, potable water, where
Right.
any water we use for irrigating the fields like at Waveney comes out of wells.
Right.
So,
Okay.
so now we come to Lapham, and we have a short video here that the volunteers made. Coming through your speakers? Okay. Then that's not gonna work, because if you can't hear it, it's not gonna do you any good.
You send it to me, I can forward it on to everybody.
Okay.
You know, it'd be useful.
Yeah, you could send
It'd be,
it.
it'd be useful too if we could have the Waveney wedding website presented to the bodies as well as 'cause they didn't do that to Parks and Rec last week, I noticed.
No.
So, but I think, right,
Yeah, we just,
I think that'd be useful for the boards to see that
just bought the websites.
that
last
work.
week.
Right.
So-
So when we can
Okay.
get,
So we're on to Lapham. We'll get you the video.
we can have Aggie explain it while she's here.
Sure. Come on up, Aggie.
It's on our YouTube channel. And we sent it out in our email blast, so our guys have watched it. It basically talks about the programming that we do. We have 75 weekly programs going on. We've got about 20 volunteers that are consistently volunteers that run programs, teach classes, do things like that. It talks about the use of the building. It talks about Medicare. We just finished the Medicare Part D program, which was over 500 appointments. We saved people over almost $300,000 this year in savings by switching their insurance plans. Probably our biggest, most important program that we do. We talked about how many parties, how many events that we do. We did a lot of summer events this year at night. We did a dinner on Wednesday night before the concerts. They had dinner out on the patio and then they went over to the concerts. That was a new program that we did. And we're going to do more of that this spring and summer. And I also have a meeting with Zach, and we're going to collaborate and do more intergenerational things now that COVID's kind of on the back burner. So we have some of that planned, and we've been very busy. It's really great. Fall was pretty much back to normal.
So the point you made earlier about seniors, we're kind of, it's not going into the self-sustaining because whereas we have revenues of $76,000 budgeted.
We do have revenue,
Which
but
is down from 95,000. Why are we going down so significantly on revenues?
Well, we're not as many senior residents as we had before. So our classes are not as big as they were before.
Oh.
And they want everything free because they got a lot free during during COVID, because we did a lot of Zoom stuff that, didn't really have a cost. There was very few programs that I ran for costs. And so we're bringing them back slowly. We don't really always spend all of that $95,000 in budgets. We get close to it, but we don't spend it. But we do a lot of free programming as well.
Right.
A lot of that stuff comes from getting used to coming in and doing stuff like that. But we used to make about maybe 10,000 over what we spent, and we're not quite back up to that yet.
Hopefully the CHP will reduce your
The cost, yeah.
your cost for the building.
We have a lot of use of the building that has no fees. So they come in, and we've also picked up a few meeting things from the library now that they're closed. They've been using the building. And so we have a lot of like a college coach interviewing a kid for a college because they would do that at the library. And there's no fee for that. We're open. And we picked up quite a few of those kind of meetings, which doesn't generate any income, but it's use of the space. The space gets used all the time.
Just a quick, Aggie, you might not have the answer to this. This might be more of a Josh question. Just seems like the Social Security numbers are up higher than the salaries are. And it's different from all the other Social Security line items for the other departments. Any reason for that?
So I think we're just kind of more accurately calculating what that number should be. If you look at the revised budget for 23, it's not too far off. I think it's 21 if I remember offhand. It takes into account now just the part-time and OT, just to kind of give a better picture of what it really should be. I think it was just kind of a ballpark 19,000 that was budgeted last year on the adopted budget, but the true expense, the revised, will probably be around 21 or so. So you'll probably see that throughout a lot of budgets that just kind of more accurately represent what we expect the Social Security expenses to cost. And if you kind of comb through some of the budgets and just, add up the salaries and multiply it by 0.0675, you'll find that number is pretty accurate.
Okay. Thank you.
So overall, and I was just realizing that, Waveney House and Lapham don't have their energy cost in their budget because you're putting it all in the park buildings, which then doesn't really fully load the cost of those operating centers. But overall, Lapham is only up 4.1%,
4.11,
which is mainly your programs. And anything else people want to ask about as far as Lapham while Aggie's here?
You're boosting, oh, I'm sorry. I'm done with Lapham.
Thank you, Aggie. Great job.
Thank you, Aggie.
Thank you.
Done it's 12 to 57% increase in supplies.
Yes. So there's a couple things to raise Kiwanis up. One thing is the sand for the beach. I don't really know where we buy sand every year come springtime to improve the quality of the beach. I don't know where Steve was getting the money for that, where he was taking it out. But that, and also the chlorine. The chlorine's gone up in cost, and we needed to use more to keep the water level up to the quality standards that it needs to be. So the chlorine and the testing.
So we're using more chlorine?
We did last year. And not that we've over chlorinated the pond, but we're keeping it at the proper level. And I'm not saying it wasn't kept at the proper level in the past. We just noticed we used more than was budgeted. So that's why we increased it.
I know this is maybe a little off topic, but what are the numbers? What were the numbers last summer in Kiwanis?
I can get it for you offhand. I don't know.
Was it flat down, up?
It has more use. The library ran some events there,
Mm.
which worked very well. So if you went down there with the Y there in the library, and this year we're planning on having the Waveney camps go back there some and also use the pool. So that will increase its usage some. Does it still have, it's mainly the little kids and then some seniors, things like people like that, you know, but is it always busy? No, but it definitely has. There's definitely enough people that I'd want to keep it going. Wow. Okay, so now
although we brought the cost, I recall 1918, I think we were like $95,000. So we brought the cost of Kiwanis down to 73. We're actually in the 60s last year, mid 60s. That at least we right-sized the cost for the facility somewhat, and we don't reflect the YMCA revenues here.
we don't reflect.
Which offset the cost of the operation. Where do those revenues go?
That's what we're on to now. So here's the good part, you know, our projected revenues for all these departments minus the pool is $1,057,500.
So that's compared to what's the overall expenses for rec?
Well, that's where we're still trying to figure out how much, you know, like where would my salary go into that,
Right.
you know, and that type of stuff. So we're still working on that, but
Right.
this is where I think Ann used the number 40,000 about.
Once we're still throwing up some of the numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, lots of stuff in motion here in recreation.
Lots of stuff.
Have we finished?
Do you want to go through the pool fund?
Sure. Actually, I thought the bonds have been paid off, so there should be a big swing in the,
Should be the bond.
Where is that?
Bonds
Where is
have
that?
been paid off for the Steve Benko pool. Right,
what page?
32.
32. So with that, last year was a great year for us. We never had to close one full day. For the weather, for pool conditions or anything else. Steve Dayton did a great job in keeping everything quality. We did have one issue, 20-year-old pool. The pump went for the umbrella water feature for the kids thing. We did get that fixed just before we closed. And we're having work done. They're in there working today, trying to get everything ready for next spring. Some of the stuff, the money that was approved doing that. So with that on the pool, 4.9% increase. It's mainly under properties repair and maintenance and major maintenance. Those are two items that, you know, we don't know is probably the main thing on what could crop up during the season. So. It's a great facility for 20 years old. It's holding up well. So. We're happy.
What's the next big CapEx of the pool?
We're going to get to the point where we're going to have to retile the pool, things like that. Overall, by replacing the pumps and keeping the old pumps as backups, that's going to put us in a good place for the main infrastructure that way. Some of the automatic chlorinators and that type of things we're not at the point where we need to like rebuild the bathrooms and stuff like that. I think we can still do some heavy duty pressure wash and cleaning to get them open for the summer season and we'll be good there. But the pool deck is starting to show concrete in the Northeast. 20 years is a long time and we're starting to see some cracks. We did quite a lot of patching last year so that it's a safe, smooth walking environment. But I think we're going to have to start replacing the pool decking. When I say pool decking, the concrete decking around the pool.
John, can you just comment on the screen here? I see an ending balance of the pool fund, negative 583,000. yet in our books, in the hard copy book anyway, that I'm looking at a ending balance of the pool fund of 898,000 positive. Can you just help me reconcile those two numbers?
I'd like to, but I really
Or
don't.
maybe Josh? Okay, or Josh can?
I mean, we have it as at the end of FY23 being about $1 million. And I think maybe we can.
I'm just looking at page 32 in the books.
We can go through it and just see where the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused though here. Back on the operating budget for the pool, we had in 2022, we had the bond principal payment. Did that come out of the pool fund and not the operating fund?
I thought they were all part of the same, since they're pool fund. I'm not exactly sure.
Just like the sewer fund, the operating expense would include bond principal. Okay. So.
Yeah.
I guess my point is, I expected more of a swing in terms of seeing this come out of the operating fund. Because the pool fund was so big, you'd think that anyway. I'll pay more attention to that with the Board of Finance when I try to understand.
But there's no contingency, because in 24, they're saying it's, well, based on the budget and revenues, it's actually gonna be a profit.
Right.
So there's no contingency fund set up in it, because the fund balance would just take up any differences. So you drop to 212 in the actual for 22. You have 100,000 just in the contingency. That 100 right there, because there's no contingency in 22.
Right. Well, is contingency the right word?
Well, contingency, it was budgeted. It's been previously budgeted. The shortage more. The practice was if the revenues didn't come in to cover the expenditures, but balance it out.
Right.
So I think it was more, the contingency line was put there as it into the.
Right, to balance the budget.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to balance.
To balance the budget.
To me, the relevance of this is, and by the way, I had a question about pool passes. Do we have out of towners still?
We still do have out of towners,
And they pay more.
and they pay a lot more.
And they pay a lot more, but
And
I thought their demand for after COVID was so great by residents that we really didn't have room for out of towners.
we've had no problems with adding the 100 passes of out of towners each year. We've never reached capacity of the pool.
Right.
Per se, and we've had very busy days, don't get me wrong, but never saying, oh, we can't let anybody else in. So it is nice.
When we get to the fee discussion, to me, the operation of the pool has gone cash flow positive in a big way with the bonds being paid off. So we probably should not be talking about pool increases, possibly pool decreases.
That
Pool fee.
what we presented to the Park and Rec Commission and what they approved was no increases except on the daily use rate. And that's a very minor.
Okay, so we'll have that fee discussion. Okay.
If I could just also ask, I could not hear Ann or Josh very clearly. Again, I'm looking at the books. I don't see any contingency for fiscal year 24. Yet on John's sheet here, it says 120,000. So again, I don't know if I'm looking at two different updates here. Josh, can you just come back to us on that?
Oh, you want to come back?
I can't hear when they're speaking from behind.
Sorry about that. I just lost my page real quick. Josh, what page was it?
32,
Which is,
32.
thank you.
32 for the pool fund.
So the practice was to put a contingency in there in the years where the expenditures were higher than the revenues coming in to balance the budget.
Yeah.
The budget requested versus the revenues, it was a surplus. So there was no contingency put in.
Okay.
Definitely
But
do
there
like-
is now. I'm just saying, John's has 120.
John
Our
has,
sheet's
but
on
we-
page.
Right, but John, as John said with his presentation, we need to touch base with his presentation to make sure now that we update any changes that John might have had,
Okay,
and we'll get that.
okay, he'll be back with,
Contingency is
Okay,
not the
thanks.
right word. I mean, it's an offset or something or
It is an offset. I think we need to change
Yeah.
the practice of how we do it, because they can always use the fund balance if they go over.
Right.
And they need it to go over. So if they do need to, they just show that expense going over,
Right.
and then it keeps the numbers clearer.
So for 24 years, I've developed the park maintenance budget, but to keep things consistent, Tiger is gonna be presenting that with Public Works.
Okay,
So,
all right.
okay.
Any further questions for John? That great presentation. I hope to be able to read it when we get a copy on our tablets or hard copy.
thanks, John.
Did a great job. Thank you, Aggie, Zach, Steve. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
You want to use that? Now the big kahuna. Where do we start?
You want to wait for Nick?
Could we maybe just take
Yeah,
a
take a couple minutes.
couple minute break? It's 10:22.
Hey, I don't know if you started already, but you guys are on mute.
Set.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we
no, yep.
we resumed at 10:30. And Tiger Mann is presenting the Public Works budget. And Tiger, why don't you back up and for those, well, if you can see the screen, Tiger was just
Go back.
why don't you go back and 57 strong.
57 strong, 8 divisions. Have John listed in here, the Park and Rec Director. But John answers to Kevin. I just didn't want to have to change the entire slide for one change. So overall, our overall budget this year is 12.5 million. It's up 971,000 or 8.39% year over year. It's our largest increase since I've looked since 2007. But we are in the situation where we are as far as inflation and the overall economy. Last year, our budget was 6.31%. The year before was a 4.4, and the year before that was a negative 1.2. And then from there back, it's all under threes back to 10, which was a negative 4. So
this is mainly inflation,
it's all inflation, pretty
mainly
much.
outside contracts and a lot of
Right. A couple, yeah.
actually,
some-
it's also the kicking in of the minimum wage increases, which then reflects on the entire wage scale that everybody. So
that matters.
Right.
That matters. And we had a new union contract come in. So some of those changes are reflected in here as well, as far as steps and grades, hires, things moving around a little bit. But we're like I said, we're at 8.39%. I'll try to run you through the highlights of each division as we go. This just gives you the graph overall. As we stand, that bold red at the top is actually inflation. So you can see that our larger departments, highway and parks, both seem to trend or are trending very well with inflation over the past 13, 14 years. And the majority of the other divisions are running relatively flat, comparatively speaking, to that graph. The only one that you see a little bit of a change in is buildings, but we started off at a very, very nominal budget and then and worked from there to grow that department. And here just gives you the marker as to where highway started and ended inflationary wise, and we are within about $20,000 of inflationary costs, depending on how you look at it.
So that's things like road salt and stuff. A lot of these things have.
That will get over that, but yeah, salt increased dramatically this year. It's, I'm looking at a $75,000 increase in just salt, our de-icing products per se. This gives you a breakdown of the departments. Our salaries are now at 49% of our overall budget. It's down about 3.3% from last year. If you look at overall, everything here, 85 to 90% of it is non-discretionary spending. The rest is, I would argue about 5% maybe discretionary. The rest of it is just trying to keep the town running per se. But between salaries and utilities and outside contracts, we're just around 75%, 75% of the budget itself.
Kathleen, can you hear Tiger?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So as far as on the administration side, our operating request is $336,000. It's up $16,000 or 5% from last year. And we had just basically an increase in our outside contractors line of $10,000. We're using it as a feeder for small projects and to get projects up and off the ground as far as rolling forward. Surveyors, some small amount of professional service work, things of that nature. But we're seeing an uptick in that type of work, and we need to see a slight increase in that. Other than that, there isn't much of a change other than a reflectionary cost into our overtime expense for our admin, just trying to stay at our what we consider our 3-year average. Any questions on admin?
Any questions?
Nope.
The next is engineering. It's $393,000 or up $33,000 or 9.29%. There's a significant increase in our outside contractor line. This is for a sewer study that is required by the POCD. Once every 10 years, we have to do a sewer study. So it's written into the statute. So instead of having that sit on the land use side, there is an increase in the land use outside contractor line to cover the POCD. But since sewer falls strictly underneath DPW, we felt that engineering should be the best avenue for that. So we put that number inside there. And I have to note that I think I made a blunder that I saw last night. So I didn't put a line in for professional services. So there shows a negative of 9. I'd like to review that number and come in with a different number. I don't know exactly what happened there. I'm going to call that one on me. So I don't know, but I just saw it last night for the first time. And so this number might slightly change. I'd like to break that open and come back.
What is that, Tiger, as opposed to
Professional
contract?
services is sometimes we're hiring additional people to take a plan review, things of that nature, or for some surveying work, depending upon what we see happening on the land use side. If Maria wants a secondary person taking a look, if it's specifically a town project, sometimes we like to have somebody else take a look at some of those items versus having it run solely through her. So, but I'd like to take a look at that line. Didn't realize they left it.
It's clearly a mistake.
Hmm?
It's clearly a mistake since it's in parentheses.
Right. And I have expenditures for the past 3 years. So
Yeah.
I apologize. Any other questions on engineering?
So on the outside contractors, you said this one thing has to be done every 10.
Every 10 years. Yeah. So we'll see a commensurate bump, and then next year we'll drop it back down again to its running rate of around $50,000 is what we'll see. So I bumped it up by 2,500 because we were at 47.5 to bring it to around the 50, and then 25,000 for the sewer study itself. And then that'll be 1 year of it, and then we'll bring it back down. And I believe the Board of Finance will have a similar request tonight at their for us to do a more in-depth study of our sewer system for the POCD going forward. But that's for discussion since they are the WPCA. That'll be a discussion this evening. Any other questions?
No questions.
I'm good.
Town buildings is 1.427 million. It's up $204,000. This town budget includes the town hall annex. We shifted that over last year. The percentage change is 16.67%, but there is a large increase in our service contracts, and that the majority of that large increase of $147,000 is for our managerial contract for 220 Elm Street. So if I take that out, we're at a 4.6% increase.
Our managerial, you mean our property
Property manager. That's
That's
correct.
going to be offset by the rent paid by the Board of Education. So
Thank you. That's exactly it. So there'll be a commensurate offset. We have to show the expenditure, but there'll be a commensurate offset from the BOE. This year, we didn't have it budgeted. We're going forward to the Board of Finance tonight for those monies for that management service. For
actually, I
this
thought we
year.
talked about taking 220 Elm out of Public Works altogether and putting it into rental properties.
We did, but it sat here. So that was still in discussions as to whether or not we made it its own separate line item
Right.
or we put it into rental properties. But we hadn't made that change yet. So this is where it sits at present. But if we take that large number out, the overall increase is 4.6%. We see a couple of bumps here and there, increase in our supplies. And then we did increase our light pole maintenance by $15,000. Light poles, we have a series throughout town, and they're starting to age. They were put in the early 2000s, and we're either getting them knocked over whereby the person is taking off and we're not necessarily able to find them, or they're starting to age out a little bit, and they're $5,000 plus each to buy. So you're only talking about 3, and we have well over 70 in the downtown area. Any other questions on?
Were those all donated at the time?
The majority, all of them on Elm Street were donated. The ones on Main Street and Forest and were done through town funds. The ones on Locust were a grant. So it started off with Main and South. Those were all donated. And
A state grant?
Yes, a Main Street improvement grant. Steve Kleppen got it. It was part of that work, and then the sidewalk on Weed Street was all part of that one grant.
And we have Cherry Street we're going to do?
We're looking at Cherry Street, from Main to East Avenue. This year in our budget, we have the small stretch from Town Hall to God's Acre. It's about 4 or 5 poles there. That's in our budget this year. We have all the infrastructure is in the ground. When we built the sidewalk, we put the infrastructure in the ground. Now it's just a situation of running the wires and putting the poles up. So the poles are ordered. We're just waiting for them to arrive. And then we'll look at Cherry Street from Main to East. There are some on Cherry. Those were individual residents put those in, or individual property owners put those in on Cherry Street, similar to what happened on Pine Street in front of Walgreens. Those were all done as part of the development. We asked the developer to put those in as well. So those were put in under private funds.
You're talking about between Main and Park?
On Cherry? Cherry between East and Locust. There's light poles there. There's light poles on the intersection of Cherry and East. Those were all put in by a private developer.
Okay.
They were part of the development process. Morse Court were part town funds as well. Yeah, sorry, I missed Morse Court.
Questions about town buildings? Are we still on town buildings?
Tiger, on the CHP gas, is that the new, those CHP things that we put in?
That's correct.
Okay, and so how are they fueled? Were they at one time by gas and now we don't have that as a line item, or how does that work?
They are fueled by gas. Right now, we're working through what we have monies in our fuel oil, and then we're at present, and then we're going to be making a change between fuel oil and gas, since it's helping the CHP not only drops off some of our electrical load, but it also drops off some of our heating load. Specifically in the takes the top off, and then in the shoulder months, we won't have to run the boilers. So we're trying to see exactly what our run rate is going forward before we make the change from one to the other. So we just need a little bit more data.
Okay. So we'll see either something appear on that line item or up above.
That's correct. You'll see a change in the fuel oil and a bump in the CHP.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
No questions.
So everything's up 10% on the,
As John mentioned, we put in a 10% line because we don't know. right? We don't know where we're gonna be. You know, we were going through a very high fuel prices for a while. They're starting to drop, as you can see, and now they're kind of fluctuating a little bit. They seem to have found the new normal. As far as what Eversource is requesting on the 48% increase on the distribution side, or the supply side, I should say. Distribution is set, supply is up for grabs. Right now, we have Constellation Energy, as Kevin mentioned, all the way through to half the year. So we're looking at going back and saying, do we want to buy the next half year and then another futures contract with the BOE, or do we want to wait till this runs and then go? And our consultant, Jeff Mayer, has been looking and saying what we think we should do. We have a meeting this evening with the Board of Finance to specifically talk about fuel oil, gasoline, and electricity to see exactly how they want to handle, this volatility. We normally pre-buy. This is the first year that we hadn't pre-bought because we were told don't buy your fuels early because of see exactly what happened. Some weren't even giving futures contracts. Now futures contracts are coming back into play since the world seems to have settled a little bit. Now it's determining whether or not we want to start picking those up and when do we want to pick them up and purchase into the future. So we put markers in the budget as to what we think the fuel increase will be, but we're not.
Hopefully by the time the Board of Finance approves the budget, we'll bring these numbers down to something more.
They'll gel. Yeah.
Is everybody, all the other departments starting with 10%?
Well, we told across the board, just use 10%.
Right.
Yeah. As
So
a
police-
number, just because we didn't have any other way to decide, to be honest. And then, like I said, once we get a little bit of guidance tonight from the Board of Finance as to how they want us to go, if we want to go back out for a futures contract, we'll do that. I personally like having the futures contract because it takes all the guesswork out. We don't have to worry about coming back for additional monies. This year, we're having to come back for additional monies only because the volatility in the market, diesel prices went to $6 to $7 a gallon. We were budgeting in the threes and fours. So it's not sustainable. So as for the highway department, their budget is $3.75 million. It's an overall increase of $372,000 or 11%. I took a look at the highway last year was 3%. Overall, he's been at 3% pretty much 3 or less for a good amount of time. One of the changes in here is that we had a railroad offset line of $67,000. That line has been removed. So there's a net gain of $67,000 to the overall budget. That's whereby some of our overtime is offset by the railroad fund because of work that is done not only here for highway, but also for the Parks Department has the same exact salary line offset. So we take that line out and our budget jumps by $67,000.
Why was it taken out?
It goes against the railroad fund, and the railroad fund does not have the funds to sustain it.
COVID screwed up the revenues coming.
Yeah, of course it did.
Yeah,
so we have a little bit of a different, a difference there. I ran the overtime numbers for the highway department for the past 10 years, 12 years, similar to what I did for the Parks Department. And they were running somewhere in the order of $365,000 for a 3-year average and $385,000 a year for a 5-year average. And I tried to bump up their number just a little bit to try to get us started into that range. So I bumped it up by about 35,000, and then we'll see how the rest of it goes for this year to try to get them to 305. The salary offset from the railroad at 67 would have brought me to 372, which would have brought me right into that sweet spot between the 3-year average and the 5-year average, knocking the high and low out. But if we depending upon how the year rolls, if we need additional monies, we'll come back to the Board of Finance for that. And then Kevin, to your point, I added in $75,000 to our property repair and maintenance. Our road maintenance line item. That's strictly for de-icing products. This year, you saw, that large jump between last year and this year, and we don't see that will go down. And then we have an increase in our.
Although the offset to that is good weather. So
right now we're doing well. Yes. Yeah. I don't want to, sound anything out. John and I were talking this morning and he still thinks that there's storms coming and we still think there's storms coming. So I don't want to say no yet. And then we added an additional 10 to our repairs mobile equipment, and that's strictly, you saw this morning, we're buying more supplies for certain parts of the fleet, and then an additional $12,000 in our outside contractors for some additional work and help either during storms or elsewhere in the process. So any questions on highway?
None here.
So the outside contractors,
A lot of that, what a lot of that work is for cleaning up in the downtown area, snow removal. And then, so it's basically a $20,000 to $30,000 hit every single time we do that. And then some additional work, either working with our forces if we need say an additional an excavator, working on our drainage projects, things of that nature.
but that's gone up pretty significantly over the years, though, right? Go
We
back to FY20, which I think
that was our
19.
spend of the year. So our budget here was around $50,000. So we had 50 in 20, 50 in 21, 22. We bumped it to 60 in 23, and then I'm coming up a little bit more.
So that was an unusually good winter as far as expense.
In 20?
Yeah.
It was an unusually good winter. We don't know when the cycle is going to come back. We could be California soon. So. Not that I wish that on us, but. Any questions on highway?
What is the railroad fund now, guys? Balance.
In the book.
Right.
The balance will be, according to your book, it's 44,488 after this year. Be down to 44,488, and that's.
Is this the appropriate time to talk about the parking fund, or? I guess that's capital in terms of how we're going to use.
As far as for parking itself, that would be in capital.
But where does the parking fund stand? And did we we moved over money from the right. Are we going to do that? Are we going to do that?
So I just analyzed the whole of ARPA, and that 150 entry is getting booked. So we put another 150 into the fund.
So we took because we really lost revenues,
Right.
and we're allowed to use ARPA for lost revenues, but that was for 1 year. Do we have a second year?
I didn't see anything approved for it.
But shouldn't we take that?
Yes. We should.
Because the parking fund depends upon those excess revenues come in to sustain it.
Right.
And we lost 2 years, really, with we had appropriated, I think the 150 represented only 1 year. And we may have a balance of ARPA funds to spend. So I think we ought to look at that as to whether or not we take some additional ARPA funds into the parking fund. I think we talked about that in our meetings.
Well, I just want to make sure, and I'll revisit it. Josh was just pulling up that the fund balance in the parking fund is 800,000, but I have to verify that.
Yeah, we're going to need that.
That's
Sure,
not,
we're going to need that for the Locust Avenue lot in particular.
Okay. Any other questions on highway?
No,
Kathleen?
good.
No, I'm good.
All right, the transfer station is $61,000 increase. It's 1.764. It's 3.58%. We're looking at a jump. We have a slight increase in our salary line items. That's part of the union contract, and then we're a $30,000 increase in our garbage hauling. It's just a bump in the contract year to year, and this year, we're looking at also the possibility of fuel surcharges coming into play. But a majority of this money is offset by our tipping fees. So we charge a tipping fee. We charge a slightly higher tipping fee than what our rate is going out the
Did
door.
we change those recently?
Oh, yes, last year.
Yeah, I thought,
Changed those to 95 from 90. And
Yeah.
and we were at 92.50 going out the door, Now we're at 94.50 going out the door, but we're still higher at 95 coming in. So we're still a little bit higher. The revenue will drop slightly, but we still have the majority of it covered. So while you see an increase here, there was an increase on the other side as far as that fee. And we can look to move that fee to say $100 a ton versus the 95. That would generate somewhere on the order of 7,000 tons is $5 a ton. So you're talking about $35,000 additional monies if you wanted to do that change. We try to stay slightly above it and not hit the haulers too hard, because all they'll do is offset that cost back to the resident, right? So we don't want to hit it too hard on one side versus the other. So we try to hit that sweet spot now at 94.50. Next year, when the contract moves up, we will bump up ours by another $5 to stay again above it. Any other questions on transfer station?
Nope.
Parks maintenance is at 2.186 million, up $99,000 or 4.78%. Again, there's a commensurate bump in the
John, why
salary.
don't you join us, John?
Yeah. Okay.
The parks looks great. The parks looks great.
Don't they?
I mean, especially the Lapham Road stone wall. I mean,
Greg's almost done.
yeah.
And then once
They're working
I
today.
I think the Park and Recreation Commission commented on that last week that
that cleanup, that changed that whole side
Yeah.
of the property. And then Greg will then jump down by the leaf mulch site and then run south till we run out of room. And that'll be paid for by the Conservancy.
Right.
So yeah, it looks really, really nice. He's done a fantastic job. That whole area looks great. So the overall change is $99,000, a 4.78% increase. There's a hit to the Parks Department again of 8,400 for that railroad offset line. So you'll see that, and then there's an increase in their outside contractors, grass treatments, the utility lines, and then there's a new line added for Bristow Parks maintenance for $12,000. This was a request by the Conservation Commission. Now that we're almost coming through our, it was a 5-year plan, but we believe we're going to be finished in 4 for the renovation of Bristow. We have to look to put some additional monies in specifically for Bristow maintenance. If we're going to spend $500,000 on Bristow, we should spend money on the maintenance line. So this line will be for that specifically, for grass cutting, for weed whacking, for weeding, things of that nature, things along the trail.
we don't do that now. Is a
Very, very limited, so with all the changes to the park, like trail
Yeah.
maintenance is removing trees. But now that everything's been redone and the use is way up.
Right.
There's definitely gonna be some.
Right, and there's an increase, like we have some increased amenities there now. We have some new bridges. We've got a different trail material. We're using the same trail material we're using at Waveney. That's a little bit of a premium cost. It's much nicer on the feet to walk, but there is a little bit of an upcharge there. So
your point is well taken. If we put hundreds of thousands of dollars into it, we might as well.
yeah,
Keep
I
it up.
think it's a nominal amount. And like I said, the Conservation Commission requested it. They actually had it on their side of the ledger. And we said, well, it really should be on our side of the ledger. As far as it goes, and put into the park side so that John and Todd and Ryan can manage it.
is this where the Dunning electricity is?
The Dunning electricity is in the parks.
Right.
And Mead Park.
And Mead Park.
Right.
So since this is 4.78 and the other one was, if we moved all that electricity over to one,
Move it to one side or the other. Yeah. I mean, it's a meter, right? So it's not, we just have to charge the meter.
no, I'm just wondering where logically it makes sense to concentrate parks electricity into one budget rather than into,
Definitely can. It's old history. That's why it went this way, you know,
yeah.
because like the Orchard Field lights come off where the bathroom is.
Right.
And in the past, the water tower lights came off from Lapham Community
could you
Center.
discuss that with Josh?
Yeah.
As to whether we can, because I think that would help the appearance of the other budget. If we move this over there. No, it would hurt.
No.
It would
Yeah,
help-
bring
it
that-
would help here.
Should bring that over here.
But I mean, to me, there's a certain logic in keeping it all together, but you know, you decide with Josh.
Figure that out.
Tiger, can you comment on grass treatments? What kind of treatments are those? Is that seeding or some sort of chemicals? What's going on there?
The main increase there is not changing our program. It's the cost associated with the program. So grass seed has gone way up. There's been a few bad years. So the prices have gone, fertilizer itself has gone through the roof, whether it's organic fertilizer, which we use a lot of. The trucking charges have raised that price. And then any synthetic fertilizer, because it uses petroleum to manufacture it, those prices have gone up. But it's not changing our program.
Didn't it go 40% grass seed?
Yeah, with grass seed's about 40%.
40%, right.
And
40% year-to-year increase.
yes.
Oh,
But so you said you're not changing your programming, so however much seeding you have recently or the last couple of years been instituting, that'll remain the same.
It will remain the same. When I say we're not changing our program there, every year there's little tweaks on how much
Yeah,
fertilizer
sure.
stuff, but overall, no, we're not changing our program.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions on parks?
So the total staffing on parks on page
14.
A year ago, so starting in July, we added an additional full-time. We took the part-time guy that we had and made that position into a full-time position.
Correct.
well, page 46 says 13. So is this
It should. Right.
That'd be 14.
14.
but also I'm trying to do this in relationship to the outside contractors for the work we do it around some of the buildings with Greg's and others. Where are those numbers?
That is inside the
Parks?
inside the parks outside contractors number. That was another one that was split in half. There was stuff in the recreation department budget and we brought that over. Is that last year, or the
Yeah,
year before?
last year.
Yeah, we brought it over to the park maintenance side where it should.
Right.
Right.
So
Similar
where's
to
that?
some of the capital items we brought over from recreation over to parks maintenance as well.
So that's outside
Services.
outside services or outside contractors for
Outside. It's O/S.
Oh, it's contract.
OS contractors that. So there we have. How much are we paying for those building maintenance from the, like Greg's? Does Greg's do all of it?
Greg has been doing most of it. You know, when I say that, the general weeding and things like that, yes, we even with our staff do some of it, but most of it is done by Greg's.
And how much is that approximately?
I don't have it off the top of the head, sorry.
You
I'll
know,
get it for you.
Hey, John, I got a question for you. If you look at the list of the FTEs, there's this line for irrigation technician, but there's no
Right.
history, no.
Right. When their irrigation technician retired, we didn't have anybody that was qualified to do the work. But with that said,
When did she retire? I guess before 2021.
for
Donnie, yeah.
maybe 2 years ago.
2-3.
Yeah, because it's not in.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
So we'd like to maintain the position. it's a valuable position. There's times where we'll have to hire an outside contractor to do some work. Not that when we had that position filled, we didn't. Right now, if we tried to go outside and hire somebody, we'd probably have a tough time finding somebody that would be willing to come over to do it.
So you're just keeping that as a placeholder.
It keeps it as a placeholder. It's part of the union wages per se,
Right.
so that if we did hire somebody, the position would be there, but we're not trying to fill the position. Right.
So part-time salaries for parks is only $15,000.
That's for the gardener.
That's for rec.
So why don't we use part-timers more for
We did for a while.
summer maintenance?
We used to hire college kids.
Yeah.
A lot of it was more babysitting than quality work. Because there wasn't a big workforce that could do it. So we stopped about in 2008.
Yeah, I was gonna say 2007, 2008.
Yeah,
Hmm.
we stopped hiring the college kids. It also comes at a time, most of that's, maybe mid-May to begin into mid-August.
Yeah.
It's a time where grass is slowing down mowing, so some of those normal, simple maintenance type things, jobs
Right.
there.
And then they leave when we need them.
Same thing on highway. We don't have much part-time.
No, we have zero.
Zero.
If we're gonna hire, we hire an outside contractor. He'll come with an additional labor. We'll add our staff to that crew.
Right.
And create a crew off of that.
Okay.
Versus having it part-time.
Where are we?
That was parks. Any other
Any
questions
other
on
questions
parks?
on parks?
Yeah, excellent. Thanks.
Thank you,
So,
John. Nature Center.
So Nature Center is next. The budget is 82,757. It's a straight 10% increase because the rest of it it's all utilities. So we added in a 10% cost across the board for electricity, fuel, oil, and water. We'll see exactly where these shake out, but that would have been a $7,500 increase overall year to year. Any questions on the Nature Center?
None here.
Are we gonna get gas up there as far up Owen to the nature center?
At one time, Eversource talked about bringing gas up to the country club. And I don't, I conceivably, I don't know whether they're going to have a 5th year of expansion.
I don't.
They said they plan to do further expansion, but we really haven't talked specifics about locations.
I think the majority are going to be small, little
Yeah.
changes in the main line, say around Forest Street, Locust.
Right.
They'll consider the work at Waveney to be an increase as well. But no, at present, no. There's
Well, when they thought they had an Ono project, they were serious about bringing gas up to the new building up there. But
even though we have a lot of buildings, it's not necessarily a large draw.
Right.
Right. Excuse me, overall. Any other questions on the Nature Center?
nope.
No.
Town utilities percentage increase is 5%. This is for our streetlights, hydrant service, and for the town sewer fee. Historically, they've been asking, Aquarian has been asking historically always for an 8 to 10% increase. We've been increasing at about 3% level. This year, they're putting a much larger push on, similar to what Eversource is doing as well. So we put basically a 5% flat rate on those two for this year. And then we had the increase for our utility sewer fee for our buildings, for our sewer fee. It was just a slight increase of $1,800 overall. So 34,610 for the year. So 5.6%.
Eversource is our biggest expense here, but also our biggest taxpayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a thought about whether or not is Yankee Gas, Eversource Gas, now
They have-
paying taxes on their pipes in the ground.
Yeah.
So I'd
Yeah,
I'd
they-
be
once
curious what that
Once
additional,
they commission them, they start to be.
I'd be
start to
curious what that
taxable.
amount is, because whether that's embedded in the Eversource bill or whether Yankee Gas, which is their operating name, still is added to our tax revenues.
Right. Each thing that they increase, every time they increase a water main, we get hit
Right.
on one side, but then they also pay on the other. So.
Hmm.
Any other questions on utilities? The next is tree service. Last year, we saw a large bump in tree service year over year. So this year I felt it was a good idea to try to flatten it back out again. His average for a very long period of time was around $550,000. We made a large jump last year in this budget, so I wanted to keep it flat. We'll look again next year and see exactly how this year's expenditures go for next year. Our bids seem to be coming in pretty competitive, so we're comfortable at present. Any questions on tree service?
Tree warden? That's tree
This is the
warden.
tree warden. Yeah, this is Bob's work. Sorry, I jumped too fast.
And we are working on this ARPA funding for the developing a tree planting program. And also working with the Conservancy to share that cost for the Waving Park. So
That's correct. I've had several meetings on the roadside for the South Avenue Relief Project with the Beautification League and the tree warden. They have a list of trees and locations. We're plotting those locations, and then we'll ask for an encroachment permit from the state to install them along South Avenue. And we'll be working with the state arborist for that. So we've had a couple of meetings there. That is moving along quite nicely. And then we had a nice meeting with the Conservancy about Waveney itself. And I just got a proposal from a landscape architect to help us with that plan. So we'll review that proposal and then with the Conservancy, and then bring it forward for the Board of Selectmen approval next time.
are we having a presentation by the Conservancy as well as the Athletic Foundation for the? Okay, but
Any other questions on the tree service?
Nope.
So for sewer. The sewer plant sits at 1.5 million. It's $150,000 increase, or an 11% increase year over year, 11.1%. We did the exact same look back on sewer as well. Last year was a 3.1% increase, and we're just seeing a very large bump in our supplies line, and our outside sludge hauling contract is in its next year. So you'll see a bump in that as well. That's a jump there of $23,000. We have a $34,000 increase. That's for our chemicals to combat our phosphorus and zinc. And then we have some increase in our utility lines overall. Any questions on sewer?
Nope.
All right, so capital. Our overall capital for this year is at 12.38 million. That does not include the police department or the police department training facility. I took those out only to try to basically level the playing field, since any of those large items we took out.
what page are we on, Josh, for the cap? 127?
So
So why is the police,
I'm sorry, what?
you were talking about police and
I took them out only to try to level it, because if I didn't, the overall ask is 44.88 million. But it's not necessarily fair to the overall budget to hit it with $32 million. We didn't do it for town hall. We didn't do it for any of the larger expenditures when we're renovating a building. So I felt it was, we should treat it similarly. So So this will, the increase theoretically is between this year's 12.3 million and last year's at 9.7, but not included in that 9.7 is the $3 million we had for Waveney for this year. It was in the budget and then we tabled it and we brought it back out again. So in essence, it's a 12.7 to a 12.3. So we actually came down a little bit year over year.
Waveney
The
was
improvements came out of cycle.
what?
It came out of cycle.
Oh, right. So, but it belonged in the 23 budget.
Belongs in the 23 budget, right? So I'll walk you through each division. Engineering is just under 5 million, 4.985 million, up from 3.7 from last year. We have our pavement management program. Our PCI right now is in an 84.53. We are right at that sweet spot of the 85, 86, 87. Next year, it looks like we'll jump over that line if we stay with the program where we are, doing the work that we need to do, and then some of the work that Eversource needs to do. So I put a line in for ADA improvements townwide of $500,000. It's a blanket number to take into account the fact that over the next several years, we'll have to be doing some improvements through various areas of town to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. So this could be as small as buying benches that are or tables that are ADA compliant, all the way up to walkways and other signage and things of that nature. But instead of trying to break it all down into one piece, I just put an overall number in, and then we'll work through that process as we go. But I wanted it out there that it'll be a sizable amount of money as we move forward on various projects, depending upon our negotiation with the Department of Justice. Then I had our standard $250,000 for pavement preservation. That's for our crack sealing and our local repairs. That's a very good program that we've had instituted for a very long period of time. This then I have $250,000 for maintenance work for our bridges under 20. Last year you had $75,000 in for consulting fees. This will be towards the actual repair of our structures that are under 20 feet long. There are some grant monies available. So as we move forward with the designer, we'll be then looking to work with Greg, our grant writer, on possibly getting some of those. Sometimes it's a 50-50 match with the state as far as repairs. I have $300,000 for parking lot improvements. This is an overall plan to take care of our 50+ parking lots in town. And then, excuse me, $300,000 for sidewalk improvements. Then I have a signal replacement. These are two separate lines, excuse me. They're in essence, one's a $50,000 line and another's $150,000. The $50,000 is actually in working with the police commission. We're looking at putting audible pedestrian signals in throughout town. So when the design that we have underway at present comes forward, we'll be looking at doing that. And then we have some engineering work to do on the two signals that we have. And then we have commensurate money in the out years for that amount of work going forward. The signals are 20+ years old. Eventually they're going to be needing replacement. We already replaced one cabinet due to age. A lot of the conduit is failing. A lot of the wiring is starting to fail. So it's a necessary improvement. Then I have $150,000 for a rotary installation in town at the intersection of Bank Street, Old Stamford Road, and Park Street. You can see it on the screen. This is a pedestrian improvement as well as a traffic calming initiative. It's been on our books for a decade or so. And we'd like to bring this project forward. In essence, what it'll do is it'll 90 up the intersection at Old Stamford Road and Park Street, and therefore slow the traffic as it enters from Old Stamford Road onto Park, because people tend to carry the speed that they had on Old Stamford Road onto Park Street and don't adjust until they're past Mead Park, the Mead Park entrance and on towards the condo complexes there.
But it's not really a rotary.
It's not a
It's
rotary
it's
per
an
se.
island.
It's an island. It's a
And
splitter island.
what's a better word than rotary?
Right. Well, it was traffic calming. And then it'll be a pedestrian improvement whereby right now the sidewalk on Bank Street ends before Whitney Avenue. And there's no way to get across the street. There is a crosswalk, but there's no way to get down the sidewalk to it and then across. And then anyone at the condo complexes that leave Fair can't necessarily cross Park Street. So if you look, we're trying to add a sidewalk to that side of the road and then give them a better crossing area a little bit further up Park Street at Park Lane. This we could possibly look towards some grant monies as well. We had it originally in the original lot SIP and we've separated it out due to its complexity, but we can certainly come back and look for some monies there as well. And then I have our standard drainage improvement, guide rail signage, security, energy savings, and then we have 2 additional EV vehicles. We just received our 2 recent ones for land use. We'll have 2 more replacements and an additional set of chargers, and that should necessarily help us turn over the fleet. The fleet is aging at best, 2006, 2009 vehicles that we need to necessarily get out of the mix and get into a little bit more of a sustainable nature. And we feel that the EV vehicles will be low maintenance and a very good initiative for the town.
Hey, Tiger, I know this is really a BOF question, but just for my information and knowledge, I mean, what the determination as to what's bonded and not bonded, just
$50,000 cap is the number at present, anything 50 and below, or then it depends upon its nature, whether or not it's a short-term repair or a long-term repair, that comes into play as well.
So it's 50K.
So they have a dollar value, and then we look at, what is the nature of it? Is it painting or is it a more substantial improvement?
And then on the out years, can you just talk briefly about the Nursery Road Bridge?
So Nursery Road Bridge has been sitting in the out years for several years now. We just continue to keep it at that number.
But the numbers haven't changed.
Number hasn't changed. We had it was a little high at present when we had it in there originally. And right now it's sufficient. Its efficiency rating is quite high. It's just a question of that it necks down a little bit and then it causes some flooding behind it a little bit, some backup flow behind it. So if we were to go forward, that might alleviate some of the issues that we have in the lower 5 mile, but the thought was to open up the throat of it and bring the water through. But right now the bridge is in good shape, so we don't want to bring it forward. There's no need to bring it forward.
Tiger, I have a couple of questions. One on the sidewalks. My budget book is showing for the next fiscal year 500,000. And, previous years and then forecasted for subsequent years is all 300, but for this year it says 500. If you can just reconcile the differences there.
Yeah, I think I added, I apologize. I think I added $200,000 for new installations. The 300 was to stay with maintenance and the 200 was for some extensions here and there. But I'll reconcile those numbers. Thank you.
Okay. And then there's in the outer years, there's something called parking lot land acquisition, 1.2 million for 24-25, and then another 2 million. What's the plan for those acquisitions? What are we thinking there?
We're looking at several areas in and around the downtown, and then some of our commuter lots where there might be there's some parcels that might be at play that will help us either expand the parking or allow for better access to those lots. If we decided to, in the downtown area, if we decided to deck one of the lots.
Isn't this 28 Grove Street?
No, this is not. That from 28 Grove came in. Was a good find. This is the Locust area and at Talmadge Hill, specifically those 2 locations that we were looking at the possibility of at the time. Now, this is going back several years, so that's why it sits in the out years. Just in case we see something come to play that it might be a good thing for the town to look at strategically, a couple of different parcels.
The electric vehicle charging stations, is that, how many units would that be for 15,000?
One unit charged two with two arms.
Okay, so just one additional next year is in the budget?
Yes, yeah, one to serve two vehicles. So it's a
Right.
We charge for the charge.
yes, not for town vehicles, but yeah, the
Yeah.
thought is, and we set up the system back here to do exactly that, whereby we can turn it over and have anyone that utilizes it off, that is not a town vehicle would be charged for it. We haven't gone forward and turned that switch yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other question on engineering?
You have your admin engineering capital budget slide in here twice. Is it the same slide?
It's the same slide. Yeah.
Okay.
It was just because I tried to bring it back up again after a couple of the pictures so that we could talk again instead of having to go backwards.
Okay.
So next would be town buildings. It's just under 3 million, 2.946 hours. Again, here's where I note the police department reconstruction at 27.5 and the police department training facility at 5 million. The largest number that we have in, once we take those out, is a repointing project at Waveney itself, the house. As far as we can understand, that the house has never been repointed. It's entirely a stone. So we have a quote for $500,000 to repoint the entire building. This will help longevity. We did some work when we did the roof, but we only did it up around the roof line. We didn't do the overall skin of the building. And this will help from water intrusion and water damage. Then we have $250,000 in to aid in the Powerhouse Theater reconstruction. This was our portion of the monies that were.
You know where they are with the
They're
companion
in the
funds?
process of rolling out they have a fundraiser. They hired someone and they're in the process of rolling that out. The design is underway and we're trying to tweak the design and we're having someone take a look at the numbers to see whether or not the overall budget is still correct. We feel we'll still come in at a very good number, $100 million. And then half of that will be we're feeling will be the Powerhouse or the town players' responsibility. We have $250,000 for structural repairs of the Irwin Park barn. We have monies in there for the roof. When we actually started to look at the roof structure, we noticed that a lot of the structure itself is undersized, and the beam spacing is too great. So we're actually having to beef up the structure itself. And we had a bid for this, and this is the number that we would need to beef up the structure, and then we would then be able to put the roof on top of it. So this is the additional work needed at the barn. We have $200,000 for the main house, for work in and around the main house to try to open that up, possibly as a not-for-profit center to then actually bring our not-for-profits in. But this is necessary work in and around the Irwin house to maintain it. And then this item, the $200,000 for the Nature Center Audubon House, was removed from the budget last year. It's still an ask from the Nature Center. I have a meeting with them in the next couple of weeks to go over their buildings and grounds. And
What do they want to do there?
that would be for 3s and 4s for school, and then for after school work. My feeling is that they would then generate some revenue off of that endeavor, and if we're helping with the house to bring it up so that they can use it, then the monies that are generated should go back into the overall physical plant. So we could ask for the the gain there, any profit that comes off of the endeavor to be put back into the physical plant to help offset some of our costs. And then we have money in for what we call the old incinerator building, but it's necessarily the newer of the two incinerator buildings, engineering for $325,000 to review the actual removal of the building. The building was built in the 1970s. It was decommissioned in the late 90s. It does house our salt facility, and it houses the transfer, the swap shop at present, but the building is laying fallow with all of its guts per se. The crane, everything is still inside the building, and we would like to have it removed and actually be able to utilize that upper area. Land is at a premium in town. Land is at a premium for the town itself, for DPW, and we would like to then remove this structure and be able to reutilize all that area up there for a proper salt shed, help out with the swap shop, animal control facility, and other things that might need land for.
Do we know if there's material that's needs to get,
Material. And
we know there's material.
as part of that is an environmental study to see exactly what we need to do to remediate it.
So the 325 could be more.
That's just the engineering.
That's just the
That's
engineering.
the engineering.
What's the, I don't see the out
Add a
years
zero.
because you don't know.
Add a zero to the end of it. And that's getting
Add a
close.
zero to the end
That's where we came up with,
because of the remediation.
strictly because the building it's just a steel structure.
Right.
There's nothing to it. To
Right.
take that thing down to nothing. It's just a remediation per
Right.
se. And then we were looking at possibly expanding out. Right now it sits over the top of the highway department. So it's actually the roof of part of the highway department. We were looking at expanding out over that with a decking system to then actually utilize that area properly. We have about an acre of area up there that's underutilized that if you look at an acre of land in town, it's quite expensive. So to try to put a deck out there to then allow us to utilize some of that area would be a good move for the town. One, to get the building, to remove the building. That's primary. And secondary is to actually start and reutilize the area. So this is our first step into it. We do have engineering money in to look at the old incinerator building, the animal control building, but that's around $50,000 to just look at removal of that structure as well. And at that point in time, we could utilize that footprint for a better animal care facility than what we have at present, if needed. And then there's about another 20, there's about 29 separate areas of concern all the way throughout the budget. I'm happy to talk about any one of them. And we have, of that, we've got 8 as well that are specifically for the Waveney House itself, for the interior of the Waveney House. That it's an initiative that John's brought forward that I think is excellent, and for revitalizing the interior of the house itself for a rental venue and weddings and other things. So that those monies are shown in the budget as well. So I'm happy to talk on anything that you might have a question on.
Salt, yeah.
Kathleen?
I'm all set.
Okay. The next is the highway department. It's $670,000 up from 508 from last year. It's in essence replacing 3 of our larger items, 2-wheel drive dump sander, a sweeper, and a boom mower. The 2-wheel drive dump sander is a 2007 International with 4,700 hours on it, which is equal to about 157,000 miles. It's fought over 200 snowstorms. It's the next one that would go in our rotation. We have 13 of these vehicles. We try to replace one a year, so on a 15-year cycle. The next is a boom mower, 2003 John Deere with 6,400 hours, and then a sweeper, 2012 Elgin. It's 11 years old with 4,000 hours or 15,000 miles. And then we have a 1 leaf collection system and our standard equipment refurbishing item. Any questions on any of those items?
Like on the out year,
So
the salt barn.
Salt barn.
Remind
Yeah.
me what's at stake there.
That's actually, that's the installation of a new barn itself. It's a $2 million prospect. Well, it's 1.25 million for the barn itself. We are doing a study right now of the capped landfill to see exactly if we could place a barn on the capped landfill to try to rule out that it's a large area, to rule out what, what's the possibility. But given the fact that the DEP, it's heavy permitted, and then given the fact that the DEP won't let us puncture the liner, we'd actually have to build a spread footing on top of it. The costs are much more elevated than that. It's about $650,000, maybe $700,000 additional monies just to be able to build on the landfill. One of the reasons why I was looking at the old incinerator building to knock that down, to then give us usable land that's not capped, that's not under DEP permit, that's just, our land per se. So that, given that reason, but the salt, then to place the salt dome on top of it is about $1.25 million, to give us a proper salt dome, one that we can drive into and stack and utilize versus right now we have, I think, one of the only salt domes in the state that you can't drive into. Might be the only one.
And not to go back, but the highway garage, the elevator speech on that.
The highway garage itself,
Yeah,
as far as
the spend, the out year spend on that.
the garage itself is under town buildings. I'd have to look back.
Yeah, I know. I just
That's just maintenance work.
it's made it.
Yeah, just overall maintenance work. I mean, interestingly enough, the building's 20+ years old already. I mean, it feels like the land swap was yesterday, but it's 20+ years old already. So
It doesn't need to be replaced.
everything's starting to go. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything on highway? Transfer station.
All set.
Sorry, thank you. The transfer station is a $47,000 request. 23,000 is for container replacement and 24,000 is to repair the asphalt area in and around our container loading area. It's a heavily used area and the asphalt is starting to fail throughout that entire back lot. The liner sits directly below the asphalt. So we have to be very, very careful of that area. The containers themselves, we have 6 containers. This will replace 4. We're actually replacing 2 and are operating this year because they're not going to make it by the time that we get this money. They're all of a 1998 vintage when we opened the facility, so they're well past their useful life. So this will then give us a complete set of 6 brand new ones, and hopefully that'll, with good use, will get us another 20+ years.
I don't think you have to worry about good use.
I don't think so either. I think they've done their service. Any questions on the transfer station?
Nope.
Parks maintenance, the equipment side is $512,000. John, Todd, and Ryan are requesting 2 vehicles to be replaced at $135,000. One is a pickup truck and the other is a lift gate. Both of the exact same vintage that the highway department had and the exact same storm usage. The only difference is that these vehicles drive on parkland every day, which is probably even harder on the vehicle itself. And then there's some just standard replacements across the board for mowers and blowers and brush cutters. The paint machine itself, this is a self-propelled and a self-guided paint machine, whereby John's done a nice analysis, and the paint machine itself will pay for itself for labor alone within about 5 years. Basically, you spell out the grid of what you want to paint and then set the machine up on its grid, and then it uses satellites to paint the fields quicker than our men can do it. Therefore, savings in time and also manpower. Normally, we've got 2 men out there, and now we'll only need to have 1. And it's usually a 3-week process. It should be down to about a week and a half of doing it. Even if it takes the whole 3 weeks, it's still 1 guy for 3 weeks. And then the largest item we have in here is a replacement of a sidewalk plow. We've been putting this off for the past 2-3 years now. It's not the best time to be asking for a sidewalk plow when it's 50 degrees out and it's not snowing, but it is what it is. Like I said, we were trying to find a sweet spot inside the budget, looking at the out years going out, and there's really no sweet spot anywhere.
Has this been in there?
What?
in prior years?
Every year we've looked at it and said, we go one more year. So this is about the third year of carrying this where it should be in the primary. And so we feel that, like I said, we're trying to find the sweet spot in the budget, and this is probably the sweetest spot we're going to find in looking at the parks out years. And then we have replacement of a skid steer loader, and then replacement of 2 additional light towers. We were able to buy 2 light towers this year with the rink. We shared that cost. We're looking to, again, come back out again and purchase 2 light towers. We might be able to receive some monies from the Family Fourth, since they benefit from the use of the towers.
Where would
But,
where would these go?
These would be used for full parks usage throughout for some of the soccer programs. Some of right now the rink is utilizing 2 of them.
Right.
Family Fourth uses them for some of the.
Does a rink need
concerts
more
that
than
the-
2?
What?
Does the rink need more than 2, or is 2 enough?
It would probably be better to add a couple. Yeah,
Mhm.
just more light would be a little bit safer, but I think that it's adequate at present. But the ones that we have are near their end of the useful life, and we didn't want to necessarily have them running constant, through the winter, which is a hard pull for them, and lose their capability through the next seasons. So we're looking at just replacing the ones that we have. But I think we might be able to find some money from the Family Fourth and elsewhere, and look towards, since we were very successful in buying these 2 used units, look at buying 2 more used units. Any questions on equipment? Parks infrastructure, is 2.349 million, down from 2.5 million from last year. We have our standard field improvement and irrigation improvements at 60,000 and 100,000. We added a line for Connor Field reconstruction. This would be to turf the infield at Connor Field. When we were looking at all our fields overall and what's the best usage of them, turfing the infield of Connor could give you extend the seasonal play substantially, and then expand the age groups that can use it, and the types that can, and both sexes as well, because you can have boys small games for boys, and then softball for girls, and then the larger fields for the boys as well. The Waveney exterior walls, this was a standard at $50,000. At $50,000, we're creeping along on the process. So we doubled the process to then hopefully shorten down the time frame it takes us to get through all the walls throughout town. We have, as I mentioned, the Bristow Bird Sanctuary Phase 4 and 5 combined into one. The 5th year was only $15,000 that forward to stay close to what our ask was from last year and the year prior. So it's 97,500. We have 75,000 in for a plaza for outside the pickleball courts. Right now it's gravel. We need to change that surface. 1, the players are picking up the gravel and bringing it onto the court, which is detrimental to the court. And 2, it's not a suitable surface for anyone with a disability. So we need to bring that forward. And then it just beautify the entire area and make it a much more of a pleasurable experience. And then we feel that just average park goers will use that area as well. Then we have $150,000 for a walkway from Mead Park, the parking lot at Mead Park, into Bristow, which will then help us not only with our access to Bristow and our access to the lower field, but we also have a situation whereby the materials that we're using aren't necessarily good for someone with a disability. And we'll be tying that entire project with access into that lower baseball field from the parking lot to comply with some of the discussions we've had with the Department of Justice. And then we have our $300,000 for the NCAF and our $300,000 for the Waveney Conservancy to offset their projects. Mike Benevento should be coming in to talk to you about the future project for the NCAF. We've going forward with the design. It's an excellent design for the enterprise zone at Dunning Stadium. Looks very nice. We had a meeting with our land use departments last week about it, and they looked favorably upon it. And then we'll have them come in and give a talk there. Overall, there's 16 separate locations. We're happy to talk about any one of them that you might have.
Tiger? Just a couple of things. I seem to recall that we're looking at Connor Field now, whether, I guess, some irrigation upgrades, which is, I'm not sure if that line item is for Connor Field, but then the rebuild, and you meant a rebuild, or you have it here as reconstruction. Did you say, is that going from natural turf to artificial? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. For the infield only. Yes.
For the infield?
Infield only.
Okay.
But it would service,
And-
it would service younger kids and older kids, boys and girls.
Right. Isn't that used for both baseball and soccer?
That's correct.
So,
You're talking about the baseball.
sorry.
Talking about the entire field, but portions of that field are used for other,
Well, I'm sorry. You said, when you say infield, I was getting confused. What
Yeah.
exactly are you going to turf?
turf the infield itself, similar to what we did at Gamble and.
Right. That's what I thought.
Right,
Okay.
but those are dedicated baseball fields. Connor's a little bit different because it's a little bit of an
Yeah.
open structure.
But you're just going to do the infield.
Just gonna do the infield.
Isn't that converted? Isn't part of that field converted for soccer use too? So it's, or is that a different space on the field?
And with just doing the infield artificial, there'd still be room for the soccer field in the fall season.
Okay, and that would be natural.
It runs north-south. Yeah.
In the fall, the
Well,
field
yeah,
runs
yeah.
regularly.
'Cause
north
they
south.
switch.
In the spring,
Right.
we go east-west so we can fit a smaller one in there.
But the infield it doesn't
Infield-
today impinge on the soccer field when it's
Soccer.
south.
Correct, and it won't if we do the infield over.
It'll just increase our length of play dramatically and the numbers that we can actually use on the field, since we can size it for various age groups. We have a drainage problem on the right field line.
Right field side.
Yeah,
So this'll.
and that's what we're working on now, right? The drainage issues? That's
Yeah.
not going to change the work that needs to be done on drainage. Is that right? Sorry.
Well, if we do this reconstruction, that'll help alleviate a lot of that problem.
Okay,
We're envisioning it.
so,
The field that'll help alleviate some of that issue on the right right field side.
okay. On Mead Park, what's become of the walkway that I think we approved, the Board of Selectmen approved, that was sort of around the Mead Park Pond? Is that still
So you
gonna
approved that.
happen?
That was an ARPA fund request for 250.
Oh, that's right.
That was for
Yeah.
paved trail around basically following the Gold Star Walk and then circumnavigating the pond. That is going to the
Committee.
committee, the Board of Finance and Town Council Committee. They have to, I don't know when that meeting is. It's being set up for review.
Okay.
And it'll go to the Board of Finance and the Town Council after that.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. That's
problem.
all I had.
Okay. Any other questions on parks and infrastructure? No? Thanks.
As far as sewer capital, that's all paid for by the capital, major maintenance.
That's
capital.
that's all being paid by the major maintenance fund. That's correct. The what we have we're continuing our zinc study, our sewer rehab. We have some sensors to replace, and then our UV replacement based upon our engineering analysis. We had spoken about this prior that it would, I think in last year's budget, that it would be coming up to $1 million. We had $800,000 budget. It'll be closer to $1 million. And then we have the first portion of our inflow and infiltration project, the first year. This is a 2-year project. We feel it's going to be $1 million overall.
Is this all coming out of the major?
Yes, that's correct.
Right, so that how big is that fund? $2 million? So not a lot of reason for us to chat about this because it's all.
No, I just want everyone to be aware of it.
Yeah.
That's all. But that's it. That's it. Huh? I'm all done. I gotta stop sign. I'm all set.
Christmas.
Gave you, okay, and you want to go to your We Are Public Works slide?
That's it. If you want to. That's where we stand. I did the numbers I don't really like. I was gonna stay at the stops. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Tiger. Great job. Thank you, John.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
We'll come-
Thank you.
oh, what's that tree down?
That is,
Slide 51.
that's Kimberly Place. It is right next to
Oh, I
751.
remember
That's
that,
at
yeah.
Kimberly Place.
Wow.
Yeah, that was during the last storm at one
I
point.
remember that.
Well, that's an old tree.
That's an old tree.
That's an
yeah.
old
So that
photo.
was just a,
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
thank you.
Anything else? I think we can adjourn unless there's anything else. 11:48. I move we adjourn.
Second.
When is our next meeting?
24, a week from today.
Week from today. Good. So all in favor of adjourning? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Tiger.
Bye.